Hi guys, welcome to the fifth episode of the podcast. I have here with me. He was a lecturer of politics and development in Ateneo and LaSalle. He was a columnist for local and international publications such as Manila Bulletin, Inquirer, Yahoo, and Huffington Post. He was a consultant for foreign affairs for Representative Walden Bello, an opinion writer for Asia Times Online, Al Jazeera, Forbes, resident analyst previously with ABS-CBN, now with GMA News, author of four books, Indo-Pacific, Trump, China, and the New Struggle for Global Mastery, The Rise of Duterte. This is a very interesting book, actually. That one, The Rise of Duterte, A Populist Revolt Against Elite Democracy, How Capitalism Failed the Arab World, the Economic Roots, and Precarious Future in the Middle East Uprisings, Asia's New Battlefield, New US, China, and the Struggle for Western Pacific. Good evening, Professor Richard Heydarian. How are you, good sir?
Good evening, bro. Just call me Richard. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right, sir. Richard. That was a long list of stuff that you do. That was a long look that I had in LinkedIn. Medyo long scroll siya. When I was looking at your credentials. I was wondering, where did the interest of politics came from? International politics at that.
Well, I mean, it really came early, no? I wrote it in one of my columns for Philippine Daily Inquirer. I mean, from a very young age, around 5, 6, 7, my dad would make me listen to BBC News on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I was aware of the Gulf War. I was aware of, American interventions around the world. I already had interest in multinational companies and globalization at a very young age. So the joke was, while my friends were doing Daffy Duck and I don't know, Mickey Mouse and all of that, I was doing more international relations theory and everything like that. But actually, initially I was on the track on a pre-med because my dad is in the medical field, my sister studied dentistry, so they wanted me to go in that field. But sorry to them, it seems something else was a calling. So I remember one of my professors, when I was still in a pre-med course, told me, I pity your patient in the clinic or something. I think you belong somewhere else. So I eventually stumbled. So I went to UP Diliman, and so I didn't push through with my plan of getting probably dentistry in UP Manila. So I shifted UP Diliman and I did my political science. And then later on, I did graduate studies in UP and abroad. So that was the thing. And then the other thing is, medyo makapal ang mukha ako. So I think I was barely out of my graduate school when I started writing my first book in my early 20s. So that was exactly 10 years ago on the Arab uprisings. And to my surprise, all my books are published abroad. So it went through very thorough, rigorous peer review, you can imagine. And I was just, the flabbergasted when, professors from Princeton, from UCL, from reviews of my first book. I'm just like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So lalo kumapal ang mukha ko. So after that, I started writing for Huffington Post. And then the next thing you know, I'm writing for New York Times, Washington Post. I think I was the first Filipino since Ninoy Aquino wrote for Foreign Affairs magazine, which is Kurt Nixon and Kissinger, those types of people, right? So I just kept on pushing it. But I think I was not noticed by the local media until I think 2014 or so, and then ABS-CBN. So I ironically had interviews first abroad before I was here. And from 2004 to 2016, I was mostly interviewed on issues regarding foreign affairs, particularly South China Sea disputes. And I wrote an academic book on that, and I've probably written 1,000 articles on South China Sea alone, and thousands on a lot of topics. Pero nung 2016 election, I think that was where I realized there's even something more interesting and more urgent, right? And that's analyzing what on earth is happening inside the Philippines. So I think for the very first time in my entire life, I began to really find Philippine politics more fascinating than a lot of other countries I was focused on, right? And like, wow, there is something going on here, right? And in my early years of political consciousness, I'm talking about like 7, 8 years old, I was already looking at, the rise of populists around the world. And I think in my early teens, I was already looking at Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in Iran. And then later on, Erdogan in Turkey. So I'm kind of familiar with this, let's just call them subspecies of politician.
Yep.
So when Mayor Rodrigo Duterte back then was itching to run for the highest offices, I said, hey, this feels familiar. And, I know where this is going, right? So, and I think what really launched my career as a political analyst, not only a foreign affairs, especially as a writer or author, was I wrote an article in May. It came out May, but I wrote it around March of 2016. So this is just a month or so before President Duterte was elected. And the title is "The End of Philippine Democracy?" ? Right?
Yep.
It's nice to go back to it because I think a lot of people have misunderstood me over the past 4 years because, first of all, I'm not split personality, but I don't know if people remember, Fitzgerald, the guy who wrote Gatsby, said that genius is to have competing ideas in one mind and kind of not going crazy, right? So I think I took it upon myself to be able to communicate through different angles and different platforms. So I have a different voice on Twitter. I think it's louder. It has caps locks. On Facebook, it's a little bit more sarcastic, informal, a little bit. Instagram is more Vanity Fair, but you'll see a very serious side of me if it's television or newspaper or New York Times, right? So, and I think all of them are kind of a reflection of the debates going inside my mind because I think politics is so complicated and the phenomenon of populism is so multifaceted because it's not only about the president, it's about how the president is received by the public and then how the president reflects on the reception by the public and then how that reflects. So, I mean, in economics, you call it game theory, right? So it's not like the president comes in and then he does what he wants. That's not how it works. I've talked to prime ministers, presidents. I interviewed Prime Minister Mahathir. I've met President Duterte the other year. I've interviewed his cabinet members. I know that these are human beings who also watch others watching them. It's a mirror effect. And I think because of that, there's no single voice or single perspective that will really capture the complexity of this phenomenon that my colleague in Philippine Daily Inquirer, Professor Randy David, calls Dutertismo. I think it's really a worldview. It's not just President Duterte. There's something there. And by the way, I grew up in Baguio. I'm Ilocano, so I'm very familiar with the whole autocratic nostalgia. This idea that if sana lang andyan pa si Apo Diyos or what, we would have been in a great place and single. I'm very familiar with that, right? So so this idea that we need a kind of a Lee Kuan Yew, an authoritarian leader to fix the Philippines, like I'm well rehearsed in that. And I was very frank on that, and I got bashed like crazy last year by a lot of quote-unquote Dilawan, like crazy. I mean, I get bashed a lot by so-called DDS on Facebook, but that was surprising, like getting punched from the other side. And because I posted something like, well, you cannot judge everyone who has voted for Duterte as one thing. I mean, like supported mass murder or whatever. Because there are many kinds of people who voted for Duterte for many kinds of reasons, right? And their degrees of enthusiasm with the president is also multi-level. And not my mother, dad, or not my immediate family, but my relatives, a lot of them voted for President Duterte. A lot of them voted. My grandma was with me in Malacanang when President Duterte gave me an award. And, he went, so I'm very familiar about fascination that the president inspires in people. And I don't think that makes my relatives horrible people automatically or people who are for mass murder. If you ask them, all of them had different reasons for supporting the president. Because, President Duterte is hybrid. I mean, he would just throw federalism, anti-drug, anti-US. And if one of them sticks with you, then you suddenly like him, right? So all I was asking for is you need to approach the president from different perspectives, and at the same time, not lose your core conviction. So despite the fact that I speak from different angles, my convictions are very clear. I agree with the president that we have to have an independent foreign policy, but that doesn't mean changing one superpower for another superpower, which actually is even worse. At the same time, I am for, going against the establishment and changing the country in some good ways, but I'm not for using mindless violence to have a shortcut. And it's not only conviction based on morality, it's a conviction based on studying what on earth happened around the world. I studied Taksin's drug war in Thailand. Didn't go well. We studied Colombian drug war, and the Colombian president back then wrote a letter to President Duterte on New York Times. Didn't go well. So the idea that Philippines is so exceptional and President Duterte is so exceptional that he can somehow overcome physics of power and something that has not worked in 99.9 cases around the world. I just found that too fanciful. And that's where my relationship is very complicated. I mean, a friend of mine said in Davao, I'm like the public frenemy number one. And I had a fantastic reception in
Public
Davao.
frenemy number one.
Yes. Like, and people like, because, I have no political party. I criticize Aquinos. Actually, people who bothered to read my Huffington's post when I was more blogger type, I criticize President Aquino. And the Aquinos are not so fond of me, So they call me Dilawan or whatever. I mean, come on, you guys. You should a little bit read more. Google.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it there. Sorry, madaldal ako. But
Okay lang, bro.
The idea where these multifarious voices are coming from. It's not a lack of conviction. It's an appreciation of the need for intellectual, vivacious intellectual engagement to understand a very complex phenomenon that we call tertismo.
Yep. Actually, that's one thing that's why it's quite refreshing for me to see your take or insights in regards to different types of subjects, because right now I think ang nagiging issue natin now, most especially with social media, is that if you say something online and it's quite critical to the one side or affirmation to the other side, automatically you are marked as okay, ito ang party mo and that's it. Parang nagkakaroon tayo ng partisan social culture in which you already have a partisan affiliation when you say something or you have a criticism about one thing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think, again, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything. I've lived in different countries around the world. I'm very familiar with political and intellectual culture. I think sa Pilipinas, hindi pa na-sink in yung role ng so-called public intellectuals. I know it sounds presumptuous for me to even praise that, but many would describe someone like me as a public intellectual. I do my academic books. I've published with Cambridge, with Oxford University, Palgrave. So I've done my assignment, but at the same time, I engage the public. And the role of public intellectuals is always to look at how things could be better.
Yeah.
So no matter who's the president, the public intellectual is almost like your secular prophet. Again, I know it sounds presumptuous, but I'm looking at the models like Jean-Paul Sartre and, and those guys, the French guys in the 60s and 70s, or Noam Chomsky and Zizek nowadays. I mean, the idea of public intellectual is to criticize whoever is in power if they feel that person is not making the most out of the mandate they were given.
Yeah.
They can see there's a better future. And, when I criticize President Aquino or President Duterte, I'm not saying that I would have been a better president. I'm not underestimating the difficulty of ruling a country as unruly as the Philippines. No question. But alam ko po yan. I work in the government. I advise Senator Miriam Defensor, Congressman Bele. I've worked with the smartest legislator you can imagine. Yep. And you can imagine what kind of chismis I've got on all sorts of things going on in the government. Mahirap po maging public servant sa bansang to. Ang hirap talaga.
Yep.
So I understand that. Alam ko yan. So, so even when I engage cabinet members of President Duterte or senior officials, they know that, I'm not coming in from a partisan standpoint.
Yep.
But I also know that, as Bernie Sanders put it, you have to put their feet close to fire so that they do better, right?
Yep.
Because if you don't do it, then they're just going to be complacent or they're going to be overly defensive because they're criticized by people who uncritically criticize.
Yeah.
So importante dyan yung critique, hindi lang criticismo for the sake of criticizing. And it's not true that I've not given, that I only criticize. I've written extensively on what should we do, what reforms would work, what reforms won't work. And I've written on blogs and books and everywhere. But, actually, I didn't have Twitter until 2014 and 2015. I was forced by one of my editors, international editors. So I started Twitter very late.
Yeah.
I started Facebook 2012 or 13. And I didn't like it at the beginning, and I was like, "What the hell am I gonna do here?" I used to have friends there and all of that, and that was the most thing. But I did Facebook. But one of the reasons was, when I would go to a bar and meet some ladies, and they would say, "What's your Facebook account?" and I don't have a Facebook, they would give me automatically this.
You're one of those guys that doesn't have Facebook. Okay.
Are you are you CIA? Are you
Are you CIA?
Are you married? They would automatically think something creepy. Like, I said, go ahead. This is my ID. Go check. You won't find anything. Wala pa naman facial recognition. But so I just made it para lang wala nang issue. Ayan, Facebook ko yan. So I'm a very late player. I'm a late comer to the social media game. So I had some rough start. You know what I'm saying? And first I tried to say like, oh, you want this issue? I'll send you a link. This is where I discuss it in this column or book. And I noticed, yeah, 1 out of 10 people would bother to go and read my very nuanced take, but
Uh,
9 out of 10 wouldn't care. They would go to the next guy. So like, there's so much, attention deficit around that I realized you have to get your hands dirty. So Facebook at least gives you some time to do a little bit longer form. Although I don't also like that. I would like more like short, sarcastic comments, boom, and then like with
uh,
pink background or whatever.
and it's
It
gone.
works better. And
Uh,
then Twitter is even worse, right?
yeah,
Because God, how much can you say in a single tweet,
yeah.
right?
It's hard to
So you
put context to it.
like poetry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like poetry. Honestly, it's like horrible poetry, but it's poetry. You have to put the very complicated idea into like what 50 characters or so,
Mm.
and it took me some time to incorporate the caps lock culture. It works with Trump. I said, well, if the right wing uses it, why shouldn't progressive uses it? So I tried, and it works. Damn it!
Yeah.
I mean, I have tweets that got 40, 30, 20,000 likes, and they're
Uh,
like they're not the smartest thing I've seen in my life, like, but they work. And I realized, like, you know, but I got into a lot of hot water. I got
Yeah.
into a lot of trouble. I think, one of my most stressful moments of my life were on Twitter and partly on Facebook because, you're bound to be misunderstood. But at the same time, you don't want to be also like those academics who are in their own little irrelevant world.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You want to be out there.
there was Walden Belly, who became a congressman. My God, being a congressman in this country, and you're a professor from Princeton and Berkeley. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that guy how he struggled.
Yeah.
And it's brave. I mean, you may debate about what's his legacy, but he's a brave guy. And by the way, I think Walden was the only congressman I know who resigned out of conviction because he had disagreements with President Aquino over the Mama Sapano issue.
Yeah.
You see, we're the kind of people I've worked. Miriam Defensor, Walden Belly. I'm proud of the kind of people I've worked. People with conviction, with their imperfections, of course, and everything like that. But so inspiration, and I realized you have to get your hands dirty to push the envelope.
Yep.
And along the way, you make mistakes. So last year, I pissed off 90% of my friends probably when I had a debate with one of the bloggers from the other side, right? I was like trolled like crazy. I mean, my God, I gained 10 kilos last year. So I'm like 10 kilos. Yeah,
You're trying to lose it off this year?
Hey, you saw my picture last year. I was big. I was huge, just the stress eating and all of that. It was crazy. Last elections last year was crazy. And I went on social media fighting back with trolls, like, just like Kenshin Himura fighting all up and down. And I realized that's not the way too, right? But one thing I noticed it on my page, Facebook page, Richard from Heydarian, not my personal page.
Yeah.
I noticed, nakita ng maraming tao, palaban tong loko na to. So ngayon, pag may nag-troll dun sa page ko, bugbog sila doon. As in, 10 comment na, bobo, tanga. So I have to delete that all. Like, guys, this is nice. We're not like the other guys. So I think I realized that kung palaban ka, even if medyo magsyunga-syunga ka here and there, you actually make people think that this guy is worth standing by or standing for because he's willing to fight back,
Yeah.
I want to play this pretty boy. I'm too good for these guys, Englishero, whatever. Let's go. Okay. Ngamet, sige, debate tayong data. So, we can go with that. So, I made a lot of mistakes, I think, over the past few years, but, baptism of fire, but you need to learn, my friend, because politics is not the same anymore. So I don't take advice from people who had their moments of fame before because it doesn't work the same way. Social media, algorithm, technology has changed our conversations and the complexity of today's politics, from pandemic to climate change. The world could go crazy and you have to go with the flow, and within that flow create some zen and stability. That's the challenge, I think, for people like us.
And I'm also interested sa fact that you are seeing the magnitude, or let's say the value of social media platforms right now, and the idea that you mentioned earlier, your way of ang execution mo when it comes to different types of social media platforms is different. How you speak to Facebook, how you speak to Instagram, how you speak in Twitter. You know that you have limited context. You have limited. Your take has limited context in this platform, so this is.
The medium is the message. The medium gives the message.
Yep.
So you have to.
Yep. That's an interesting take. Pero like kunyari may mga magko-comment bigla, let's say sa page mo or whatnot, or a reply on your Twitter. Do you see that as good insight from your end as well? Like, okay, this is how the netizens respond to this type of message or this type of
Yeah,
thing?
first of all, yeah, I think depends. No, but overall, social media gives you a sense of public mood. You know, it's
Hmm.
a form of analytics. You don't even need to go to the data. It gives you a
Yep.
sense what people are interested in.
Hmm.
Now, of course, I know the challenge here is what they call audience capture. That sometimes you curate your message to appeal to your audience,
Yeah.
and I try not to do that. I mean, I bash all sides, so
Hmm.
that's and I got bashed by all
Yeah.
sides. I think last year, like Ethel Buba and Mocha trolled attacked me at the same time, right?
Uh-huh.
And I trolled them back, you know. So and I had to, you know, I and Ethel had some exchanges. We were okay. I don't know about Mocha, but whatever.
Uh-huh. It's a work in
So
progress.
my point is like we don't need to progress that.
Uh-huh.
My point is first of all, it gives you a sense what's the lay of the land because you know
Mhm.
there is no point for you to try to say this is where we should go or this is what we should do if you don't understand the lay of the land.
Yeah.
You have to understand what are the coordinates of the possible, and
Mhm.
the Twitter and social media gives you some rough but better than nothing kind of a free survey
Yeah, yeah.
of what is the public mood going, and from there you work it through.
Yep.
So I think that's something that's very important about
Yep.
social media that I've learned. Yeah.
You also mentioned earlier, at age 7, medyo kailangan ko i-replay yun sa utak ko. At
Yeah,
age
yeah.
7, your father is that interested in politics, and that's the time na nakikita mo na in different types of political regime in international in foreign countries. Do you have political background in your family, or
No,
ganun lang
not at
talaga
all.
ka?
My no, no, I mean actually it's my family are mostly educators type, and
Mm,
actually my dad hated me to get anything involved with politics because
wow.
he knew how ugly it could get. Yeah, so actually my family didn't want me. But I mean, just for how would you say transparency, President Arroyo is kind of related to us. You
Ah,
know,
okay, yeah.
so yes, we have some connection to some major politicians.
Mm,
We have some relatives in Ilocos who are in politics,
yeah,
whatever. But not in my immediate family. None of
yeah.
them, thankfully, none of us entered because I think there would be little Duterte something. I'm kidding.
Uh,
No, but and then, but
uh,
we have politically conscious people. I mean, I had an aunt who was in part of ETSA. I have other aunts who are pro Marcos. So
mhm,
we have some interesting discussions within the family.
yeah,
So I would say we are more politically conscious than really politically oriented.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, yun nga eh, so whew,
Yeah.
I think it took me some time also to navigate this mosaic of conflicting ideas within my family. Like I need to talk to some family in a certain way, in another way, like without creating a trouble or something like
Yep.
that. And
Uh,
it was hard, but that taught me how to deal with the bigger world. Because if I can navigate on a micro meso level, then I can navigate on a macro level. I think
yeah.
that was. And by the way, the other thing about social media is that it made me understand bakit yung mga ibang politiko napakakapal na mukha nila. Like
How so?
they, when you're so bashed and criticized, you develop a defense mechanism. You just filter it out. You
Mm,
develop some sort of immunity to criticism. So I think now I understand bakit some dictators, for instance, became so out of touch with reality.
mhm,
Because either they were so surrounded by yes men, they muzzled all sort of opposition, or because they they just filter out any criticism because they wanted to believe that they are like a demigod who could solve everything.
mhm,
So I think there's a danger there. But there's a healthier thing that you can get out of social media is you don't become a snowflake.
mhm.
So like I can like some of my friends say, how do you do it? Like you
You
go
mean
there,
you
you
cannot be a snowflake?
yeah,
You have to have
bawal.
a harder shell.
Bawal ang mahina.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Mm.
dude, like it's like Fight Club.
Uh-huh.
It's like virtual Fight Club.
Uh-huh.
You have to welcome the punches. Gone,
I
gone.
like
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like it's really a virtual Fight Club.
Yeah.
And after some time, you want it. You like okay, let's get it on. So like once in a while, I drop a bomb. I make a provocative statement, and then
Mm.
ooh, let's go how it goes. But over time you mature. First, maybe it's. I mean, the thing also with social media is that it creates this kind of a cheap, quasi celebrity kind of
Uh-huh.
mindset. Like, oh, I'm getting all this attention, but
Yep.
you eventually grow that out,
Mm.
and you grow that out, especially when you realize the stakes are high.
Yeah.
When you see colleagues facing jail, when you see yourself being subpoenaed for some crazy stuff. Like last year, I got a subpoena because there was a picture of my good friend Poppy Picasso on my car's
Mm-hmm.
steering wheel. You can actually check it on Yahoo News.
Yep.
And it's this idiot trolls made it look as if I made the dog drive. So I got a subpoena for that. I mean,
Yikes.
insane. And it was stressful. But I said, if these guys want to play dirty, I'm gonna take it to the really high levels in the government and like demolish these guys. But I just felt, that's not the way forward. Let's just quietly deal with this. There's nothing really against me. So I went there, I submitted a report, I asked my lawyer friends, etc. So we just submitted a report and then okay, it's done. But I realized the stakes are really high. I mean, this is not just a joke. Hindi lang ito patawa. I mean, we can have fun once in a while, but as Mao Zedong said, revolution is not a party.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not a child's play.
Mm-hmm.
And I've begun to emotionally absorb the reality of our politics, that this is really high stakes. This is not just about abstract freedoms. It's about personal freedoms. It's about the future of the country. It's about whether I can post some satirical thing on my Facebook without fear of going to jail tomorrow while there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? The trolls were asking me to be subpoenaed 2 months ago while there was this shutdown because of a post I made about Chinese test kits, which were like 87% faulty. So I made a sarcastic comments like, wow, galing naman ng beshi ni Digong, Duterte. So I had to edit it to make it sure na like I'm not creating panic and all, but the other side were like making a party out of it.
That's sad.
And then I was like preparing myself. Okay, my problem is that, okay, if I go to jail, this 2 months community, like how am I going to protect myself? Because it's not just the jail. It's like, oh my God, I mean, it's pandemic. The virus. So there was like a night or two I had to really, really think about it. Like how far you're willing to go for this. So I had those very dark, deep nights. So kahit kumapali mukha ko over that time, there are also some serious stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And so now when I read about revolutions in Russia, which I mean, Russia is one of my favorite countries, their novels, everything is Peter the Great, I mean, fantastic guy. So I now understand what kind of stuff these people were going through, whether the revolutionaries, whether the dictators who were in this tough position, they had to make absolute decisive choices. So I think in my own mini life drama, which is real drama, it helps me actually with my scholarship.
Wow.
And some friends are joking, maybe one day you can make actually a political analysis of social media impact on the Philippines. In an academic way. And with my own, experiences as a field work. I mean, this is field work 101, right?
Yep. And I think we all consider this as just the tip of the iceberg in regards to the correlation of social media and politics, right? I mean, most especially with the 2016 election, or let's say the election of Donald Trump. How powerful of a tool social media is in terms of cascading information to the public. Yeah.
Right. So there are many things to it, right? So on one hand, we have to understand that technology is not inherently positive or negative. It depends on who's most organized in using it.
Yeah.
So if the most organized people are a bunch of proto-fascist, Cambridge Analytica type of people, then your social media is going to be a hellspring, right? If the guys are the goody progressive people, then social media will be for citizen journalism and accountability. As things stand, the right-wing proto-fascists have been better in using it than the left. There's something also about the algorithm that favors, especially on YouTube, for instance, conspiracy theories. I mean, this is the problem. People attack the mainstream media. I am kind of in mainstream media, but I also criticize the mainstream media. That's what I do. And I've worked in all competitor medias. The thing is, there are many problems with mainstream media, including corporate interests, etc. Although personally, I never face any. I mean, you see me even on mainstream media. I'm pretty open about what I do. I just do it in a more sophisticated way, right? But the message thing. I'm just not as kalat as I am on Twitter or elsewhere. It's just more clean production. But I mean, the thing is, as imperfect as mainstream media is, my God, at least there's some sort of filtration process. Like, not just anyone can be an anchor. Not just anyone can be a pundit. Not just anyone can be an analyst. Before I became analyst in a major network in the country and being interviewed by New York Times and CNN and whatever, dude, I had to really do my assignment, my friend. I had to do my assignment. I don't make it I don't boast about openly all the time. I don't put all my books behind me, but it's not easy writing books with 30, 40, 50, 60 pages of references.
Yep.
I mean, just on
It's
a
true.
reference. I'm not even talking about, I mean, those were lots of thousands of sleepless nights that we had to go through. So I had to work my way through. And I realized, so luckily I made it a little bit to the mainstream media, etc. So there is a filtration process.
Yeah.
Hindi siya salpusa, just to be honest about that. Now, if you want to call that elitist, well, I call it meritocratic. Now, there are some unfortunate idiots who get into mainstream media for a lot of reasons. Sure, there are a lot of them. But a lot of people are very high-level journalists who did their assignment, who were war correspondents, who went on the ground, did their research, my teams, my research, my fact-checking. My God, there's all of those things. And they have professional reputations to protect.
Yeah.
All human beings, of course, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes, but it's like 0.1% out of 1,000 articles every. But if you go on social media, it's really who got the biggest, events, who got the biggest thing, or who got the biggest, I don't know, car, who got the biggest voice. It's really like you're in the middle of the market, and it's like the loudest voice will dominate things. And just look at my Twitter. The tweets of mine that got the most likes are among the most provocative ones, right?
Yep.
It's just the nature of it,
Yep.
Probably it works, the fact that maybe some of them know me, that I have a verified account, but nonetheless, I realize nuanced, kind of deep analysis doesn't get just as much as traction. I mean, I'm proud that I've done some pretty decent social media posts that got more than 10,000 likes. I felt that was great.
Yeah.
But I notice sometimes you post a stupid selfie, you get just as much. It depresses you, to be honest. It depresses you.
Yeah.
So there's something about the nature of social media that favors the most extreme. So if you go to the YouTube, the most famous YouTubers are either proto-fascists or far left, Antifa, whatever.
Yeah.
It's very hard for them sane people, let's just call them that. It's very hard. Yeah. You have to be really, it's doable.
The standards are off, I think. I mean, or almost no standards.
And then there's the algorithm.
Yep.
There's just something about the algorithm on YouTube that promotes the craziest ideas the most.
Yep.
And, I think folks in the New York Times have done a good series of podcasts on that. There's something just wrong with that. So, the open marketplace is less democratic and more chaotic.
Yeah.
Because democracy means there's some merit, there's some rule of law, there's some rationality. But to be brutally honest, social media for me is 90% noise.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And 5-6% exaggeration. And like 2%, there's some people are lucky who make good. I mean, I've seen even some of my good colleagues, some very, very established international journalists, lawyers, who work for CNN. And they make some stupid posts on Twitter, and I know each other on Twitter and all, but I know where they're coming from because they're trying to also reach out to a bigger audience.
Yep.
And they make themselves look like a fool. The same way I make myself look like a fool with a lot of my posts. But it's what it is. Unfortunately, the algorithm works the way it does, and we just have to bear with it while pushing for reforms within Facebook.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the reform will not come from us. It will come from corporations and advertising agencies who are finally putting pressure on them.
Yep.
So all I'm saying is this. It's good that we just don't have the mainstream media. We have alternatives. But just because their alternative doesn't make them better, right?
Yep.
And unfortunately, there's still some problem with the algorithm of YouTube particular, but even other social media platforms that always favors the most extreme, loudest voice, which are not necessarily the most truthful, the most helpful, the most constructive.
Yep.
Case in point, Donald Trump, the king of
Twitter. Exactly. Yep. And dangerous as well, especially if you were to, let's say, cascade that in urban poor area, rural areas, in which, let's say, yun lang yung information that they can get with whatever's happening in the metro or in the government, which I think, in like 2 days ago, I think, or maybe just yesterday, Unilever, Hershey, Coca-Cola are all abandoning their ads in social media platforms right now because Facebook apparently is not doing anything or not taking action in regards to.
They make money, right?
They're making money. Yeah.
It's just.
Yep.
It's just horrible. I mean, it's really, really. I'm very deep. I'm not I used to not be so much into tech and all before, but I just realized they're so influential in our politics that now I'm more and more reading about AI, Silicon Valley, social
Yeah.
engineering. So every time I'm in Stanford, so I did 2 book talks in Stanford University, one earlier this year in February, and another one 2 years ago or so. My joke there is that it's good to be here in Stanford. Everyone is busy here to make the rest of the world jobless and useless.
Uh,
It's
uh,
like a bunch of geeks just playing with the future of the world based on
uh,
some very naive and eventually like Doctor Evil,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
modes.
yeah.
I mean, it's just oh man. So I think
It'd be
I'm glad
interesting.
that
I'm
there's
sorry.
finally some pressure on Facebook and Twitter and all.
Yep.
But if there's one thing I really like about social media is this long form.
Yep. Mm.
Joe Rogan is a guy I used to watch for Fear Factor, but primarily UFC.
Yeah.
But when I watch, like for instance, I'm sure some people are familiar with Jordan Peterson, right? I
Yep.
mean, on Twitter, he's probably one of the most hated guys on earth. And then I
Is he?
bothered to read his books,
Yeah.
which is okay. I mean, he has one academic book, which is great. And then he has a kind of pop book, the one 12 Rules for Life, whatever, presumptuous. But it's okay. I mean, it's interesting. I like that. But if you go on social media, the guy looks horrible. Or if you look at his like 3 minutes, he demolishes a feminist and more. He
Yeah.
looks like a fascist. But if you listen to his, Joe Rogan interview for 2-3 hours, he's a guy I think I can relate to a little bit, but not agree with all the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's exactly my point. The idea of long form conversations, I think that should be in the forefront. Because sound bites are the only things that you get in social media right now, and the context is not there for sure.
Yeah.
So people are misinformed or
It also
misled.
means
Yeah. Go ahead.
you have 2 minutes to explain something. I mean, luckily I can speak very fast. I can do that.
Yep.
But I mean, at just some point, you don't want to always curate your ideas for a 2-3 minute Skype interview or
Yeah.
internet. So you want to have some more free flowing, fluid discussion. I mean, this is how Socrates and the ancient Greeks were doing it. They would go
Yeah.
in the middle of agora and then pick on people and make fun of their traditions, but in the process, learn something. That's
Yep.
what Socrates did, and I love Socrates for that. And this is what. So the long form, I really love it. I really like the long form. Although, of course, sometimes unfortunately, I notice that people who do long form also, probably for understandable reason, also I don't know, bring the crazy folks in to get excited. I mean, like Alex Jones types, I'm not sure about that, but okay.
It's an interesting watch though. Pero alam mo yun, you get to see what his context is, but doesn't mean that it makes sense.
Yes.
You know?
There's a saying like this liberal thing, because I'm not also a liberal. I'm more like a social democrat, center left kind of thing. So I don't also buy all the liberal stuff most of the time. I mean, there's this liberal idea that all we need to do is understand each other and all. Like if you read Mein Kampf, you'll hate Hitler even more. Like what loser! And how on earth he got that far in German? He's not even German. He's an ugly Austrian, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So sometimes when you listen to Alex Jones after 10-15 minutes, like, my God, this guy, why does he even exist? It's a waste of oxygen. So there are people that the more you listen, the more you just don't like them, right?
Yeah. Parang sometimes pa mapapaisip ka na, meron ba talaga mga tao na ganito ka out of touch? Is this for real? Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Alex Jones is just putting a front there. It's part of his game, but he could sustain for 2-3 hours of talk. I'm like, oh my, he's still in the character, Ledger Joker. I mean, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So like, and you can see like Joe Rogan is just laughing and all, but I mean, come on. And then you go to the comment section, it's depressing. Like, what the hell? Leave him. It's like there's a deep state.
Yeah.
Obama is Al Qaeda taking over. Blah, blah. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And actually, going back to our discussion, the first time I really realized how crazy the world was, this is 2016 or something, and Vanity Fair, I think, also quoted me on that. Obama was quoted me, and then Merkel. Like, I was like, that's an interesting one, because it was quote of. It was an interview I had with New York Times. It was about, alam mo yung post na best presidents in the solar system.
No.
The first time I saw that, like, this is funny, because ang akin is, bakit ang Pilipinas walang political satire? Like, we don't have anything like
Yep.
You know, like,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the
like
hell?
Jon Stewart,
Yeah, like this
Daily
is
Show,
exactly.
Colbert. Yeah.
At least dati may Ate Glo ka pa. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
Like what? Where are they?
Yeah.
Filipinos are funny, crazy people.
Maybe
We
you
are.
should start it, bro.
So you, let's see.
Consultant, maybe.
But you know, my point is, walang like it's no one is trying, or I sense there's no support for it from the
Yeah.
corporate because it's like it's
Yeah, yeah.
touchy
Mm-hmm.
and I'm dangerous. Like if you give me time to make fun, I might make too much fun, and
Yeah.
like we're all gonna. So I'm not sure about safety of doing political satire here, as hard eating as John Oliver or whatever.
Yep.
But but so when I saw that, I said, "Wow, this is funny.
Yeah.
Like this is funny. Like
Mm.
in the solar system, NASA did the report. It's like, okay, this is funny." And then it's like Duterte, Jinping, Xi, like, and then president. Like Japan doesn't have a president. I said, okay, it's a low cost, funny satire. Then I checked the comment section. Like there was like 60,000 comments.
Yeah.
I just randomly went through them to make sure it's not. And like for a split second, no, actually longer to be honest, I lost hope in humanity. I mean, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, they believe this?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh my god, this is crazy. It took me some time to regain my faith in humanity. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm a dreamer. I'm an idealist. Like I always want to hope. I want to hope that the best of human nature will prevail. And then when I saw that, it's like, we are in trouble. Like when I saw that we are in trouble, the most idiotic ideas will easily win over the best ideas. 10 out of 10. I mean, if this is how we're going,
We should have a department of sarcasm para magbigay sa government natin na parang, sir, this is a sarcastic meme.
We have been trying our best to do, counter satire and humor, but I mean, this is depressing. I mean, people believe this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they just believe this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I was so naive because, at the beginning when some of these queen trolls were attacking me, I thought they just misunderstood me. Maybe I just have to tweak my ideas. And I said, no, this is totally something else.
Yep. Yeah.
This is troll armies. Yeah. Who's gonna have water?
Go ahead, man. You mentioned earlier, actually that was a good point. I don't think we never tayo nagkaroon ng parang political satire program here sa Philippines. Na almost the same format in the US, which is a good point that you mentioned was that I think big broadcasting networks don't want to touch that. Don't want to intervene with those types of work. You have your own show in GMA right now. FYI, one of your long format interview interview shows in GMA. It's actually quite a refreshing program for me to watch. Para sa akin, it's quite refreshing. Although, do you have, since it's a big broadcasting network for sure, diba? Are there frustrations from your end? Let's say, I cannot be too risky, I cannot be too bold, these are something that I cannot ask. I mean, do you encounter those types of problems sometimes?
Well, I mean, first of all, my being, how should I put it, spontaneous on social media has effectively disqualified me from being an anchor in the mainstream Philippine media. If I were in the US, that would not have been an issue. I think in the US, they like people.
They
like
encourage
that.
it.
Like, in your face, be yourself. Go ahead. So not in the Philippines. The Philippines. We have this, especially some networks have this very sacrosanct commitment to notion of neutrality, whatever that means, right? And I think neutrality means like if you say two negative things, you have to say two positive things. It's very quantitative, I would say, right?
Yep.
Or just say nothing negative or positive, just talk about the clouds. So I'm extremely grateful. I mean, in a way, no offense to other people, but I think the kind of things I've been doing in the big networks in the Philippines, I'm not sure many people were doing that before me. There were a bunch of guys who used to work in different campaigns who give ideas, all due respect to those people. But I mean, like, what I did was I brought an international perspective, comparative analysis, and my FY show, twice I interviewed Defense Secretary Lorenzana, I interviewed Secretary Anyo, and I interviewed Prime Minister Mahathir,
Yep.
I had to interview another cabinet minister who's like our Trump on Twitter, but he blocked me on Twitter, but never mind, but you can guess who that person is. Great example of how Twitter is not the best thing sometimes. But But and you saw what I do in my interviews is I let them first give their background, information. Like for instance, on Prime Minister Matthew, when I interviewed him last year, I asked, "You're a doctor, right? You're a physician. So when you enter politics?" And then he just honestly said, "Well, I applied scholarship to law school. I just didn't pass, but I passed for med school. So he was smart enough to make it med school. But I still love politics." So I said that he just honestly said that. He blurted it out. And I said, when I was younger, and the millennials, so I said, when I was younger, you were kind of like, dictator, authoritarian. Now you sound more. And then he smiled. No, I was always democratic.
Oh, so you can.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you try to dab on that.
But of course, I did very politely, very nice. You see, I don't try to do this. There are many like hard talk wannabe type of people.
Yeah, or they want to be controversial.
My friend doesn't work. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
You burn bridges for just some good soundbite. Oh, you demolish. I hate this demolish kind of interviews. It's so narcissistic, to be honest. I think the nice thing with long form interviews I've done is you can actually get very helpful comments without being confrontational, embarrass your host or anything like that. With Dr. Matthew, I got exactly what I needed from him, which is, what is your advice on Chinese investment in the Philippines? And he exactly said what I needed him to say. And the next day, Salvador Panelo had to respond.
Yeah.
I got what I needed. With Secretary Lorenzana, we interviewed him very nicely, and he explained very nicely what are challenges. So I didn't have to embarrass him. Oh, why would you? So, that's where I'm not a journalist. I'm definitely not a journalist. I'm never going to be an anchor in the Philippines, probably. But I don't mind because I do my own thing, kind of like a Farid Zakaria-ish thing, punditry-ish thing. It's not the same market. It's not the same dynamics. But with what limited, kind of room I had, I tried to make my most. And ako naman, I'm not a type. I'm a very multimedia guy, right? I'm primarily a writer.
It'd be a fresh output, though. It would be a fresh take to see like that type of take in regards to politics. I don't think we had that before. I mean, I'm not sure, but of what I know, we never had that type of political. There's always this political correctness when it comes to broadcasting networks shelling out political content. So having that fresh take should be interesting, man. Not just as an anchor, but I mean, leading on to that type of output. You get what I mean?
So I think what I've been trying to do is at the same time, leverage the pedigree of big networks I've been working for.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for them. I mean, they give you this access and pedigree. But at the same time, I also brought the Heydarian element, right? Which is, we're not here to papogi, each of us, or me making myself look like a great journalist. No, we're here for people to really know what the hell is MMDA doing. So I had an interview with the MMDA chiefs, and he explained to us, ito pong problema namin, kulang kami sa budget. People have to understand, hindi po ito simpleng trabaho. These are complicated. And at the end of the day, you want the audience to be involved. I had an interesting interview with Mayor Yorme Isko. I gave him a chance to explain to me what is his philosophy of governance. So we discussed how he was looking at. He's really into database public policy. Some of my colleagues in LaSalle have been advising him on that. Gusto niya kumuha ng tulong, especially from some of our allies and partners, to do a kind of a geohazard mapping across Metro Manila, and based on that, make dream. I mean, people need to hear that. Just like, I'll solve the problem, nilinis ko. Like, that's great. But I need to know kung may sense talaga tong taong kausap ko or hindi. I mean, if there's something more to this person than just 5 minutes, 2 minutes. And a lot of them impressed me. Some of them even more than I expected. Secretary Anyo, our DILG secretary, was just so impressive. Oh my God. And I'm not saying it from a liberal standpoint. I mean, but he gave me a very detailed analysis of programs within the DILG. He knew the acronyms. He knew exactly what the acronyms were. He would spell it out.
Wow.
He gave you an idea that he knows every single thing that is happening in the police, in the interior local government. And then we went to the Mindanao martial law. I was just so impressed. And I said, yan itong problema. Kasi if you go to media coverage, they talk about generals as a bunch of like, these are people who know nothing. That's not true. Most of our generals working there have MBAs from Ateneo, from NIM, from Australia, from United States, West Point. A lot of these ex-generals are actually good friends of mine, and they're very smart people. Very, very smart people. So hindi porke general, ex-general, walang alam yan, korako. That's a very wrong kind of mindset. So you have to have, but you'll only know that if you have some sort of more long-form discussion, even if it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour and more. With Justice Carpio, we had, I think, 2 interviews. And in one of the interviews, I asked him, like, you're a justice, ano alam mo sa West Philippines? I said in politely, and he explained, yung pala, he used to be legal advisor of Ramos. During that time, nangyari yung mischief reef incident. Like, okay. So ito pala pinanggalingan ni, kala ko, justice, ano ka. And so it makes people realize where you're coming from. We had a very interesting interview with, actually, nag-pop up lang yung picture exactly as it. Trillanes, with,
how was that?
It was fun, it was fun. And I asked him, so he told stories about when he interviewed President Duterte. When President Duterte apparently considered him for vice president. And it was the same thing like, si Raulo yan, si Duterte. He was say, ako naman, I mean, any side can come in. And and I realized, that's the future. That's what people want. And, not always the comments are helpful. Sometimes they'll attack, obviously, if I'm with Trillanes or whatever. But you get a lot of engagement. One of my proudest interviews actually was with a human rights commissioner, human rights chairperson, Chito Gascon. Again, and then someone who's been attacked as Dilawan and all. So I explained to him, can you explain to me your background? Yung pala student council leader siya nung panahon ng EDSA, in-explain niya paano pumasok. Itong tao na to, nag-aral sa Cambridge na international law. He knows what he's talking about. And he explained to us what is human rights, what should we care about. So, yun ang kailangan natin, no? And I'm just one person, I'm just dropping the ocean. But if you can make that way of dialogue, a way of life down the road, this country can go far, far, far forward. What makes me really optimistic is, cautiously, of course, always, not naively, is that 3, 4, 5 years ago, sinasabi, pag Pilipinas, puro showbiz lang yan, puro pag-usapan lang telenovela, showbiz, K-pop, whatever. I mean, for the first time, my God, you can make political posts and actually get hundreds of thousands of views and likes, or millions sometimes. That was impossible before. Now, of course, when you're starting, it's going to be a little bit dodgy in terms of quality. Our friend Mocha Hosen can give you some ideas about that. But it's a start. It's a start. In 10 years, this is it. Ang Pilipinas po first of all, it's a small country. We're 108 million at least. We're not small. We're top 15 in the world in population. Pangalawa, the Philippines is not just a poor country. We have like 30, 40 million middle class, depending on how you measure it. For me, easily Philippines has 25 to 30 million middle class. And when I mean middle class, you have disposable income. May time ka bumili ng laptop, na mag-travel sa Singapore, meron kang pera ng Boracay. That 25 to 30 million is the population of almost of Australia and Malaysia. That population deserves engagement as much as our masa. There's so much smart people in this country who are not just getting it here. So what I'm trying to do in my own little ways is to engage also the Filipino middle class as much as I engage the masa and as much as engage the leadership, etc. So I think there's this false idea na either highfalutin ka or magpamasa effect ka. I mean, very derogatory way. But no, and one of my best moments, was going to grocery shop or jeepney driver, whatever. For some reason, someone recognizes in me and says, alam mo, sir, sobrang natuwa ako sa explanation mo ng international law on clause. Simple lang pala, pinaka-komplikado ng mga abogado na yan. Because as a teacher, my job is, ano bang essence ng issue na yan? They're just jargons, whatever. Just sounds smart. If you're really smart, you can simplify it without dumbing it down. If you're really, really smart. Kasi kamay mo talaga. It's like a karate master who can teach you a power punch. My martial arts, I have black belt in Taekwondo if someone wants to test me. I know what it is when the first time I was doing my 45 kicks, and then when I was doing after I had my black belt. So same principle. You can explain very complicated issue like UNCLOS, like South China Studies cuisine. And I was so glad when supposedly ordinary people were actually happy with the shows. Like, Prof, natuwa kami. Ang ganda ng explanation mo dun sa issue ng debt pala, national debt. Ganun pala yung calculation. I didn't expect it. I was really touched. Way more touched than, getting these awards and, top people come, hey, Richard, I like your column. And of course, I'm flattered in a way. But mas touched ako when I realized that, I made a little dent, no, in terms of pushing the envelope, because I really hate this idea that pag masa, bigyan mo lang ng entertainment. That's not true.
Yeah.
Filipino people want to learn. They have a very, very curious mind. There's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. And unfortunately, we're still in the starting point at the takeoff pa lang.
Yep.
But a long way to go. And, I come from UP. So, alam naman, mga UP, very political kami sa college noon. And then, namin, paglabas mo ng UP, ay, goodbye na yan sa mundo na yan, corporate na tayo. Kita mo yung mga taga-UP, they're all good in corporations. Yes, no, you can actually bring some UP intellectual spirit into the corporate world. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And it seems like, I mean, from what you mentioned nga, diba, simpleng jeepney driver, kakausapin ka, nagustuhan ko yung take mo regarding this certain subject, or let's say people...
Subject, right?
Yeah. Technical subject at that. And it seems like that's obvious right now, eh. The demand for politics information or how the politics work, lumalaki sa Philippines. It's just that, I almost see it like, you know how a braised beef is? Like pagtanggal mo, diba, sa smoker. Tatanggalin mo yung fat. I think that's where we are. Wala lang tayong filter to kung ano ba yung kailangan malaman ng tao or who are the right people who should address these types of issues. Pero the demand is there. And it's getting bigger and bigger each day. Yeah. And speaking about... go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, actually, I was just about to go to your black belt comment. You are a black belter, apparently. Sir.
Yeah, I started Taekwondo when I was 9, so that's 2
Wow,
years after
okay.
this. But I got my black belt in UP Diliman with the varsity. Yeah, so
okay.
I was brown for 10 years.
Yep.
I was trained by Koreans.
Yeah. Oh wow, okay.
I had got 6 or 7 master.
Before I go back to your take on other political issues that I have in mind, tawag dito. So speaking about your black belt, actually the first time that I messaged you, Richard, was that I think that was a day before the Ferguson Gate G fight. Was it? How surprised were you? Because Ferguson was like the fighter's fighter. You get what I mean? Like he's the one, the boogeyman. Diba? Parang siya yung everyone's watching out for. He's the most underrated guy out there. How surprised were you though?
For what, 7-8 years, while Gagey lost to at least 2 persons in the past 3 years.
Yep.
Justin Poirier, for instance, won.
Yep.
And I think Eddie Alvarez too, right? He lost.
Yep.
First of all, I respect the 2 men. I respect. There are a lot of people who don't understand it when they watch UFC. It's like, you're sick, man. Why do you like all the blood and gore? I said, no. It's first of all, imagine these people. They train almost the entire year, not only in terms of martial arts, but they have to diet. I mean, the kind of sacrifices. And then these are like gladiators, for heaven's sake. And a lot of them started with barely any budget. I mean, there are now stories coming out that some of them were paid like few thousand bucks for 6 months of training. I mean, so I have issues with UFC and the capitalism there and all, but I have a lot of respect for a lot of these guys. The sacrifice they make. And then I also, you see, actually the other day I was thinking about it. What I'm doing is kind of like mixed martial arts, because until Bruce Lee, each field had their own grandmaster, but they never really tested their skills against the other side. Each of them had their own claim. Bruce Lee was the first one who said that, you have to combine everything. And you have to properly diet, you have to take care of yourself, and listen what's going on. He was the pioneer. Bruce Lee was the pioneer of mixed martial arts. So mixed martial arts is a little eclectic kind of, it's an art. You bring different elements together and see how it works. So it's actually, I think Joe Rogan put it right, it's a high level, almost life and death matter chess game. It's highly technical. If you understand it, when a wrestler comes and goes with a jiu-jitsu guy, and then at the same time they're both good in boxing and all, like what are they gonna use here? Like my God, I mean, it's just, if you understand mixed martial arts, for me at least, one of the mixed martial arts I have a black belt in, and the others have basic. I mean, you know what's going on inside their brain, all the calculation they're constantly making. Wow, man, like it's intellectually fascinating for me on so many levels. So Ferguson Gagey, I was just looking forward. But I mean, Ferguson had injuries a lot of time, and then his thing with 5 times he got canceled with with our friend from Nurmagomedov. So I just felt maybe the momentum inertia is not there, and with Gage, he had nothing to lose. I mean, the guy just puts it all in the ring. So I think and he had a very good coach. I mean, if you saw the preview, the coach of Gagey, very smart guy. He was analyzing the strengths of her. Like, I love this coach. Like, this is a coach who sees the strength of the enemy, who respects the enemy and wants to beat the enemy accordingly. Hindi, oh, my guy is the best, walang alam yan. I had a lot of respect for that. No, and I think, someone like Gagey maybe deserves it. Let's see what happens. But yeah.
It's quite unfortunate to see. I mean, respect for the fighters for sure, but it's quite unfortunate to see what's happening to the UFC right now. Big props for them for putting up that event during COVID season, because they're the first one in sports industry who actually put up an event during this time. So gives a lot of hope in regards to it gives a lot of hope in regards to the sports industry, events industry as well. But then they're having this contract disputes with their top guys. The
problem is that they should have had a labor union long time ago.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is, the more celebrity type of fighters who are just cutting their own deals and leaving the more bling one. But now I think everyone's realizing, like, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Dana White is already at what, $500 million net worth.
Yep.
And then you have some of these guys putting their life on their, on the line and getting a few $1,000s. They have to pay their coach. It's just not right, man. It's just not right. And then you have all of these celebrities coming in. I think Sylvester Stallone is there. Rock is there and putting all their money. So I think it's time for something to speak out. Honestly, one of my favorites, if not the favorite, is probably the guy who's going to be on UFC 4 cover.
Which one? Couture? Who's this?
Masvidal, baby.
Oh, yeah. Masvidal, yeah. I was waiting for that fight, man.
UFC 4, man. Like, gosh, I like that guy. I mean, his record is like as many losses as many wins, but I mean, the guy is hard, man. I love it. And he has this kind of Cuban. My dad just swam across the Gulf, Florida. He's just so raw. And now he's a little bit fakey and all, but I think you need some of these guys to push it. But I hope there's more solidarity with the guys at the middle, right? Because they deserve.
Have you seen his fights though? Masvidal, like his backyard fights, his days with Kimbo Slice before? Come on, man.
He's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I think the guy is really fighter.
And the Nate Diaz fight, that was crazy. If you can see his stance as well, he stand up straight.
I think one thing I really one of the deepest comments he has made, he has many deep reflection is that, the problem is I was thinking like a peasant. I don't mean it against the peasant, but what he meant was he was just trying to score out the enemy all the time. He didn't go all the way and risk it all. It was only when he did that, after that reality show he did in Latin America, he came back. Man, he just changed. He had this long hair and long beard. Like, he just changed every level. And he just went on knocking out people right and left crazy.
BMF.
He finally, he started so brave and young, and then he went into the professional ring, and then that kind of tamed him. He became like a half-baked kind of fighter. Just wanted to say, lay it all out, let's go. And then in 3 fights, he went from middling to like superstar, right? Even Nate Diaz would respect him. You're the gangster of the West Coast, East Coast. Was like, I respect those guys. But at the same time, I think, Conor McGregor. Some people make me joke when I wear something like that.
Conor McGregor now.
I was ahead of Conor McGregor. I was doing 3-piece suits already. The thing with, the Conor McGregor, first of all, I think is an organic intellect. Like, he's so articulate. And I don't mean some of the trash talk he does. I mean, you look at his, when he's more sober, when he talks, like, and he explains the rhythms of his response. Like, wow, this guy's probably is doing some deep reading in terms of mind body, kind of dynamics. No, para my new age, brilliance siya. So I think the thing with Conor McGregor is that he redefined the coordinates of what's possible. I really disagree with Conor McGregor. I think in a way he cheapened the honor gladiator thing about. That's why I really love Nurmagomedov, and I love Nurmagomedov. Khabib just demolished that guy. At the same
time, the roughness. The raw and roughness of it.
You need to, I say there's certain people you don't mess with, especially when the person is Russian and Muslim at the same time. You don't mess with those people. idiot Conor McGregor was making like, my God, he was making jokes about the wedding he had, how the man, you don't make jokes. I mean, you're gonna die. You're dead. You're a dead man walking in Russia. Don't do that, man. So I think Conor went a little bit overboard. And I don't know if you saw some cuts that came out later on when he was punching the hell out of Conor. He said, "Oh, you're smiling now? Oh,
he was talking to him the whole time.
And like Conor was like, "Hey, man, this is just a game." Some people don't take this as a showbiz; they take it seriously, right? So, but I think both of them are the poles of some sort of a revolution in mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
makes me very excited about the future. And then if you look at the arc of the evolution also of how the fighters interact with each other. Oh my God, it's like iPhone 1 to iPhone 12. Just complexity of their interaction and all. And at the same time, you have people are so inspiring like DC. I mean, Daniel Cormier, my God. I mean, that guy is. I mean, for me, he's actually one of the best. If not, I mean, honestly, like what he has defended the belt in 2 divisions. He's done that again. I mean, there are very few have done that. I think. So I think Danny Cormier is one of those sad stories, but I was so happy for him when he won the heavy. And Miocic, I'm sorry, he was lucky. He should have lost the second fight if it went. He lost. Well, round 1 to 3, and Miocic was nothing. It was round 4 that he got him on the rib punches. Smart. Good job by Miocic.
Although sayang din yung mga times that he had the chance to compete with John Jones during his prime. I mean, during his prime DC.
And John Jones just keeps on messing up everything.
Every time.
That's the problem when you pick early. His pick is long, like he picks very long. Physically, but the thing is, he was like a champion 23-year-old or something like that. It's psychologically. I mean, I think the best guy who gives us a window into that, how hard it is to be a champion, was GSP. He just quit it. He just couldn't take the psychological pressure anymore. I respect the guy. I mean, I think he accepted that you need to do some house cleaning here. I mean, his performance was deteriorating. You know, even before he retired, he won the fight, but it was an ugly fight. It was not GSP. So I think I respect the GSP for that. It's hard to be champion. It's really, really hard to be champion because everyone wants your cake. And these are like monsters. You know, like
when you're the top guy.
But the last one, John Jones, man, wow, greatest. Wow, that guy's. It's like.
I think he's the best talent that UFC got since they started. I'm not sure, pero of how I see it.
I think Wise is like the best ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Do you consider him as your GOAT? I mean, before we lay off the UFC subject, who is your GOAT with mixed martial arts, particularly with UFC? Your greatest of all time?
The problem is, it's not only performance, but it's also personality and how you represent it. So I think I'll more give it to GSP and probably Khabib Nurmagomedov. I think if Khabib defends it 3 to 4 times more, then all respect. And you know what I like about Khabib? He's proud of his heritage. Very racist world, you know? I mean, Russian and Muslim. And he's in an American sport. I mean, all due respect, he would just. I love that guy. I mean, respect him. So much respect for him for that.
You know what, Richard, the first time that I saw, actually, you mentioned nga kanina, di ba, parang your name popped off during 2014 or 2016, and that was the election. And the first time that I saw you was in an interview with Karen Davila in ANC. The Head Start interview.
Karen is an interesting interviewer,
That was a very interesting interview, actually. Few things that I want to get from that interview. Syempre, again, context-wise and whatever, you are an analyst at the end of the day. So you're basically analyzing, or you're basically saying what you are seeing during that time. And you were talking about the Scarborough Show issue, I think, during that time. One of the topics that you guys are discussing. I'm quite curious about that, actually. About China. I always see them as they always isolated themselves from the capitalist West, di ba? Parang they always isolated themselves. Tapos since Deng Xiaoping opened their gates, ayun, boom, rise na yung economy nila since nung WTO since they were pasok na sila sa WTO. I think us as Filipinos, we are always looking at our Western lineage. parang we're always looking at the Americans who last colonized us in terms of pop culture or domestic policies. How do you feel this? Kasi ito lang yung only time that we started a dialogue with the Chinese. What's our biggest benefit from it? What could, like, even in a hypothetical standpoint, pero what is the biggest benefit for us?
Yeah. Actually, now I'm finishing a book. It's the title is The Great Backlash. So I analyze because last year I was based in Taiwan as a scholar. So I analyze Hong Kong, Taiwan reaction, Singapore reaction in Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia. So I'm comparing how each and all of these countries have been responding to the Chinese challenge.
Yeah.
Because China is just so big that by just sheer size, there are automatically almost a threat. Yeah. And sometimes I feel for them. I don't agree with them, but like sometimes, like, what's our fault? We're just the biggest guy. It's like, you know, I'm like the only 6'8" guy, and everyone's like 5'2". You know, like,
what do
like,
I do?
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, you're just. I mean, this is the thing. The curse and blessing of China was that their existence. I mean, their thousands of history was in a region where they never had a real rival. You see, the Romans had the Persians and Parthians and Sassanids, and those guys always had some sort of a rival at the same level. You know, that they could keep them honest. Let's just put it that way. China never had that. It just never had that. India was never united, and it was separated by Himalayas. Japan was always too small to be a threat. Korea was sometimes a proxy and sometimes an ally and sometimes a little bit more independent. And in Southeast Asia, it's completely its own world, right? So, although of course China, during Yuan dynasty there was invasion of Majapahit and all of that. So the thing is, I think China has what one strategy is called great power autism. I mean, it sounds so politically incorrect, but the idea is that they're kind of blind to the sensitivities of smaller countries because they have been the big guy all through and through. Yeah. Except the Opium Wars. So they had 100 years of humiliation, and then the warlordism in the early 20th century, and then they had the Civil War during the Japanese occupation. Then the communists kind of put the thing together, right? Yep. But Mao Zedong created 30 years of mess. So in my book, I'm looking at how Mao Zedong contributed to the genocide of the communists in Indonesia. Sinusulsul kasi yung mga yun to confront the military, and may fascists on the other side. Together with lords, and they massacred them. 1 million got killed in Indonesia because of that. Sinulsul ni Mao. Sinulsul ni Mao yung Korean War. Yeah. So, makulit loko But in Vietnam, ganun din ginawa niya. So, and then Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, so on and so forth. So, it is really since Deng Xiaoping in 1979 that China is finally getting back to what it used to be, right? The big boy in the town. And in the globalized words, they're also the big boy in the world because the world never integrated the way it is today back in the days, right? So I think China is a commodity we're not really used to. I mean, it's an entity we're not really used to. We have to deal with that. I think the other problem with the Philippines is we inherited a lot of Spanish, Western America. I mean, you see our prejudices against against Chinese people. Chinese, it could be people from mainland China, from Taiwan, Chinois. Where unfortunately sometimes they're all lumped together, although they're very, very different from each other. Is that first there's an element of class. A lot of they are wealthier, and in my book, for instance, I explain how shocked my Chinese Malaysian friends were when I told them, in the Philippines, the Chinese Filipinos, they dominate culture, politics, and economics. Like, he couldn't believe it. Because in Malaysia, they have the Bumiputra policy. And they were explaining to me how hard it was for them to get to University of Malaya if you're not a Malaysian, Indonesian Bumiputra. Wow. Because the quotas are more for the local Malaysians. So, and Indonesia had the version of that before. They had confiscated a lot of Chinese businesses under some so-called fortress policy. So we never had that, But at the same time, although we didn't have formal policy of persecution of them in contemporary times, and the last time there was a huge pogrom against the Chinese was during the Spanish era, I think 17th century. Nonetheless, informally, the Chinese have managed to dominate the Philippines on every single aspect. But at the same time, there's also that prejudice, right? Met a lot of taxi drivers, a lot of ordinary folks, so-called ordinary folks, who told me some horrible stories about their Chinese boss. And of course, the derogatory term is mga inchik na yan. They would that term, right? To say how exploitative they were. They were barely paid and all. But I know that that's how the Chinese also treat the Chinese. You know, like how bad the Chinese are paid in China. You know, the Chinese. It's just who they are. They're not like evil people trying to. It's just who they are. You know, they work so hard. I mean, the Chinese. My first girlfriend was a Chinoy. My college, sorry, high school best friend was a Chinoy. So they're close to my heart in many ways, literally and figuratively. And I'm a workaholic myself, so I can relate with them. You know, like so I have a lot of respect for them. But there's an element of class. Then there's the element of race, and at some point even religion. Until our Chinoy brothers, of course, became Christianized and got fake Spanish names like Coanco. And then the third was element of Cold War. Because, the Cold War period, we were an American ally, and we fought on the American side against China in the Korean War, in the Vietnam War, and so on and so forth. So you have three elements of ideology, class, and then at some point ethnicity and even religion. So it's three-level prejudice. Luckily, it's not as bad as in other countries, in Indonesia and Malaysia, where they had race riots and all of that, at least in the past 100 years. But those elements have always been there, and those elements have always colored the ability of our leaders to have a sober and mature interaction with their Chinese friends. So if you look at my videos back in 2014-13, like interviews on ABS-CBN and ANC, I was the one criticizing Aquino administration for not engaging China enough. I was called a pro-China stooge. But reaction to me, I'm called now a CIA-paid, pro-American China hater. And it's just fun. I take it as a compliment. That means I'm pretty much my own guy because, because for me, our problem with our presidents is that I think all of them were ignorant in one way or another, probably with the exception of a little bit Arroyo, not because she's distant relative, and definitely Ramos. I think they were smart dealing with China. But, if you look at Aquino and Duterte, like President Aquino, too confrontational with China. I understand the drama of Scarborough Shoal, no problem. But leadership is leadership. In the hardest times, that's where you have to stretch your hands and talk, because otherwise you're going to shoot at each other, you know? So I was a little bit critical of the Aquino administration for not engaging enough, because whether we like it or not, they say you cannot choose your family. You cannot also choose your geographic neighbors.
Exactly.
China is de facto our neighbor because they're in Taiwan. They claim Taiwan and they push it all the way to Scarborough Shoal. So they became our neighbor, or at least they're greater neighbors. So you have to deal with them. And then I think with President Duterte, just to be different from Aquino, he just went to the other side, extreme other side. Well, I think the way forward is what, Mahathir has been doing, other leaders in the region have been doing. I've been writing about that constantly. What number one rule with the Chinese is what the Taiwanese have told me, the Malaysians have told me, Singaporeans, good friends of mine, who are Chinese ethnically themselves, have been telling me, never show weakness. The Chinese are contemptuous of weak people. If you're weak, you don't get shit. I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead, man.
And guess what? How much infrastructure investment we got from China over the past 4 years on President Duterte? Yeah, we got a lot of online casinos employing more Chinese.
But that's about it.
Oh, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Where's the money, my friend? I always said, when Nas Daily and all of that were saying China, debt trap, whatever, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Because debt trap, yes, maybe in Malaysia, maybe, I don't know, in Sri Lanka, but they're not even bothering to invest in the Philippines for us to even have a debt to have a trap. Where's the money? Because President Duterte, wala, mahina yung bargaining na, mahina. He went all the way,
Wala tayong leverage.
Exactly, wala siyang leverage. Kaya Aquino, may leverage, di naman ginamit, di na in-engage. Kapila naman, ligay na lahat agad. That was our arbitration award 2006 and 2017. We were the acting chairman. So, problema ko. But at the same time, I do not agree that President Duterte is some sort of a Chinese stooge per se. Because, at the end of the day, we still have our alliance with the United States. The America had 300 military exercises here over the past year. More than any other country, And of course, you can say the military had an influence. Sure, I've been writing on that. But to say President Duterte is a Manchurian kind of Chinese governor, rhetorically, yes, I think it's embarrassing. I'll be honest. A Singaporean friend of mine said, why does he sound slavish? That's true. I agree with that rhetorical problem, and rhetoric matters because, damn it, he's the president. But, if you look at the overall policy of this president, we have our alliance with the US. We have 0 defense agreements with China 4 years in. And in exchange, the Chinese also gave us 0 really infrastructure projects. So more talk than really substance. And then the other thing is President Duterte, for the first time since Marcos, has actually sent top officials, including our defense minister, twice.
Yep.
And we're spending money, my friend. We're spending hundreds of millions of pesos building beach ramp, building our airstrip. That deserves respect.
Yep.
Aquino didn't do that.
Uh-huh.
He didn't do that. I asked President Ramos a few months ago, and he said, wala tayong pera nun. Send naman. I mean, chief flip na nga eh. Dapat sana, but Ramos accepted the logic, right?
Yeah.
So, parang feeling ko, in fairness naman, if you compartmentalize it, it's not really as bad as people say. But it could have been way, way better if we had a president who didn't jump from mayor of Davao to president of a country in the middle of a geopolitical nightmare. You know what I'm saying? I just...
In fairness...
siya kaagad. So, he's learning. I mean, I'll give that to him. Not that guy. I'll just give that to him.
In fairness naman daw, pinadala daw ni President Aquino si Senator Trillanes during that time for the Scarborough.
I raised Trillanes. They're defensive. I remember I wrote something about. Actually, I wrote something critical about Trillanes.
What was your take? What was your take on it? I mean, Senator.
Tapos mga Amerikano, walang kwenta rin nung time na yan. Which brings me to Trump. The guy is horrible on so many levels, but guess what? When it comes to China, he's finally doing what US should have done all the time.
Yep.
Call a spade, man. The Chinese are playing everything.
Yep.
They use globalization to become this big monster now, and no one can control them. And now we're also messed up with this pandemic that because of their cover-up has spread it across the world. So at the same time, I think President Trump got a point. You have... Kasi ang daming political correctness. I remember during Obama times, and I was like, China, we have to focus cooperation, blah, blah.
Was it frustrating?
It was frustrating. Because I love Obama. I think he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But, man, naive. Weak.
Yeah. I get that. I get where you're coming from. Pero the thing is, di ba sabi nga rin, although I guess this one's a pre-COVID insight, I think. By 2025, China's gonna... they will top the US na in terms of economic status.
Let's see about that. They've been saying that for a long time. Parang 2000s, parang sinasabi by 2018, 2017. Well, first of all, China is like, 5 times more population. So per capita, China is still going to be poor compared to US. So one of the things I did in my latest book, The Indo-Pacific, is that I look at the idea of net power. Net wealth.
Yep.
Alam naman natin, tinitingnan nila yung gross. Laki na economy, laki na military. Laki ng gastos ng China, ang daming poor. There's still 500 to 600 million Chinese who are near the poverty line. There's still 300 million Chinese who have hukou. Under hukou system are second-class citizens in the big cities. You cannot have free education or good public education or healthcare, so on and so forth. So China is still a developing country. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, I've been to China many times. I was in China in December. There's so many impressive things about China, but at the same time, masyado overrated rin ng China. So we went from looking down at China and looking too much up at
If
you look at net power, China has a lot of domestic problems and vulnerabilities, not to mention yung utang nila internally is crazy level. Like their governments have been crazy. Kaya ang daming empty cities in China because they've been creating fake buildings and tatlong airport in one town to just pump up the economy. That's gonna bite them back, no? That's one thing. And by the way, totoo, US has utang to China, but when your utang is so big, guess who has the leverage? The leverage is yung may nag-utang. Kasi kung hindi siya nagbayad, kawawa yung nagpao. You get what I'm saying?
Ikaw yung minus.
Lend me 1,000 pesos after your thumb. You lend me 10 million pesos. You have to beg me every day to slowly give back. I'm actually in the point of leverage. People don't understand that. And by the way, China needs American markets. Who's going to buy Chinese product? The Chinese society is not rich enough to absorb all. By the way, the Chinese are very frugal people too. They're not going to splash like American. On over-leveraged credit.
Kailangan nila yung consumerism culture ng US.
Exactly. So the US economy is central to them. It's American. Credit consumers. So that's one thing. And then the other thing we have to keep in mind, so yun nga, when it comes to Trump administration, there's finally that realism about China. The realism is that just because you're trading more with them, they're not suddenly going to be democratic. What's happened actually is that they're going to use that trade money to become military powerful to challenge the entire international order. And that's exactly what is happening today. Now, President Duterte, I think, got the idea right that China, we cannot ignore them. They're just a reality in our face. It's just how he's dealing with China for me, which is not the best. So, you cannot ignore. So you're absolutely right to say, ang problema sa atin, we're too tethered to the West. But that's so 20th century, right? But at the same time, my fear is not President Duterte, but this kind of Duterte thinking kind of people, they might commit the same mistake that the Katipuneros committed in 19th century. What was their mistake? They got American help to get rid of the Spanish, not knowing the Spanish were no longer the big threat. They were a fading empire. It was the Americans
all along.
My fear is we might commit another mistake like that in our bid to get some more leverage with Americans, and we might sell too much of our soul to the Chinese. Next thing we know, we're already compromised beyond. And there are very concrete indications of that. For instance, our national grid. Part of it is owned, and forget about owned, operated by Chinese engineers, by a Chinese company. And then it's going to be a third, China Telecom is going to come in by the third year. So I'm a little bit worried about, but all I can say is this: analyzing, writing on South China Sea, on the region for the past 10 years, I've been written all of these books and whatever. What I can say is this: kung boxing ito, round 4 pa lang ito. Round 4 pa lang ito. And sorry, going back to your question on China, on the net power thing, the other thing China doesn't have, which US has, is this: US has a network of allies. Who are allies of China again? I was in North Korea 2 years ago. I talked to my North Korean friends for 4 days. Not even once did they thank China. They hate the fact that they're so dependent on China because they have to be self-sufficient. Alam mo yung away ng magkapatid minsan mas ugly pa? Ganun yan eh. And then, who are allies?
Good point.
I mean, Pakistan, are you kidding me? They're not reliable allies, my friends. US has allies, NATO.
Exactly.
They're not 100% reliable, but even if they're 12% reliable, the NATO is so big, so powerful, that that's a huge force. They have Japan on their side. They have military bases in Korea, in Japan, Philippines, kind of an ally, Australia, I mean, come on. I mean, this is the network of alliances is a multiplier effect force, for American power. Chinese don't have that. And the third most important thing, if we look at cutting edge kind of research, biotechnology, even with the exception of some fields in AI, the US is still leading. If you look at the citation rate, the research and development, like the Berkeley area, San Francisco area has more Nobel Prize winner than I think China for the next 5 decades. Like the greatest universities are by far in the United States alone. The most Nobel Prize winners are there. The most best science, Silicon Valley is still there. I mean, the US advantage is enormous. It's true that China is creating 1 million, engineers a year or whatever, but the quality is so low. If you look at the Chinese scientific papers, they're so lowly cited. The citation is so low compared to Japan or especially the US. So a friend of mine is a French journalist based in Beijing. I'm not going to say which, but it's a big French newspaper. He said, you know what? If only for 1 week, the Japanese and Americans and Europeans get their mind together, they can beat the hell out of the Chinese because they cannot. Not to mention bringing India and all of those other countries, right? The only problem is that first you have a Trump who's so horrible, he's pissing off everyone right and left, fighting with Europe. And the second one is the Chinese are a little bit good in manipulating and playing divide and conquer. But you can play that game so far. And the problem with the Chinese is they're not subtle anymore. If you look at this so-called wolf warrior diplomacy, coming out and threatening, like what they're doing to Australia. Oh, we're not bringing our students and all. Look at what Australians like. So I think that Deng Xiaoping was a great leader in bringing some humility and realism to China because Mao Zedong was just in the air, thinking he can just
forward lang talaga.
Si Deng Xiaoping, Lithuania, yung mga teamwork, technical. Si Mao Zedong, puso. Sige lang, bahala na, 3 points na. That doesn't work, my friend. Doesn't work. If you have a limited talent compared to, let's say, US or whatever, you go to Lithuania. You work with teamwork, right? Or Croatia or whatever. But Xi Jinping is increasingly like he feels like a Mao Zedong with money and guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
He will export the Chinese model in ways Deng Xiaoping never went. Deng Xiaoping always said, bide your time, hide your claws, right? He always said,
Yeah.
for Xi Jinping, what is there to hide?
Uh,
What time is there to
I'm all out.
waste?
Yeah.
Let's go, let's go, babe.
Yep.
So this is a problem. And for me, that's premature because China is still not there.
Yeah.
Wala ka pa dyan, pare.
Yep.
Magkakaagad. It's like Northcott. Not even Northcott, but this UFC fighters na nakadalawa tatlong excited fight. Then
I want the belt.
Then they get demolished.
Uh-huh.
So to bring it back to UFC, that's my problem. What's the name of the Johnny Walker guy? You remember there was this guy. His name is Johnny Walker. He's in light heavyweight. Oh, watch! He was doing like flip and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they put him in the top 5. He got demolished there. He wasn't. I don't think it'll be the same. So for a while, it's so weird. So I think baka Northcott effect siya doon. They might peak too early. So I think this is the problem with China. Individually, they're strong more than all of us.
Yep.
But when you put, these big powers together, if they manage to coordinate, laki ng problema ng China. And just to give you an example, Huawei. The moment US imposed sanctions on Huawei, and Huawei could not source in the intermediate products from Korea, the software, the chips, the company was collapsing. I remember there was a Huawei phone from $1,000 became $100. I was really... I wanted to buy one of latest sila on iPhone. Last year. You can check it on Forbes, like selling for $100 because the software couldn't work anymore. It was blocked. So China, they look strong, but not naman mouse paper tiger, but more like baby tiger pa. It's not
okay. Yeah.
Wala pa dun eh. Medyo hilaw pa.
Yep.
So my fear is Xi Jinping medyo ano siya. He might he might
peak early,
overstep China before they're actually reaching there.
Yeah, I get that.
So in short, both sides have mistakes. The mistake of the West is thinking through trade, you will liberalize them. Sorry, China, that's not gonna work. That's not how they are. And this is Communist Party, my friend. And then on the other side, they're also buying their own. I mean, this is the funny thing. So the US makes China look like a boogeyman as if they're so strong, and the Chinese kind of believe that propaganda.
Yep.
So and then now they're buying into it, and it's a mistake. It's it's really a mistake. So what should we do as small powers? What we do as small powers is, first of all, not make a choice between the two as much as possible, but sometimes you have to make a choice because sometimes by not making a choice, you're making a bad choice. The best example, South China Sea. You cannot say we'll not take a side. If you not take a side, you're on your own against China. You actually should take a side because the US is the only superpower willing to send aircraft carriers and big warships to challenge China's excessive planes. So itong idea na we don't want to be involved in the intramural blah 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 yung sinasabi ni Harry, okay, that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard in foreign. First of all, we're a US ally. It's a fact. It's a legal fact. But most important, US is doing what we cannot do and what Duterte has not dared to do, which is militarily challenge China's success. So on that, yes. But there are other issues like Trump on trade. Actually, we should be closer to China because China is more for, let's say, open trade, while Trump is for protectionism. Case-to-case basis. And that's where you need a sophisticated balancing. I don't see that with the president. I'm sorry. I hope this president, I don't even know where to start. When I criticize the president, like, let me break this down to you. This is how it is. So he barely gets a passing score to me for that. That doesn't mean I praise the other administration because sila they may kakulangan.
Actually, that's one thing that I think wasn't na hindi na feature or let's say hindi na highlight during his campaign, during the election campaign, in which I don't know if it was, pero gaano ba ka-sophisticated gaano ba ka-sophisticated yung ties niya or let's say yung strategy niya with other nations. That is something that was never never discussed or never highlighted during the election. It's all about the bragadoso, di ba? It's all about the strongman syndrome, which apparently has worked for him.
I mean, I remember the first interviews. I mean, there's all this talk about Maria Ressa and Duterte, but I always say, like, who bothered to interview Duterte again? Who took Duterte seriously first among mainstream?
It was Maria Ressa, yeah.
Most of us, not us, most of mainstream media didn't take Duterte seriously for good reasons.
Yeah.
Give the guy platform. Guess what? Who gave him platform?
Rapper.
But anyways, let's not go there. But my point is, I remember watching that interview with Mariessa with Duterte. Duterte very comfy with Mariessa. What a kidding.
Do not pick me.
Too much play with US na. Try natin on China. And I remember in March, there was an interview in CGTN ngayon, CCTV of China.
Yeah.
They interviewed me, they interviewed as the analyst expert, and then they interviewed Grace Poe, and then they interviewed Duterte. Oh, man, I was so like, wow. Duterte was so statesman-like, ganda ng English, and very coherent. I was like, ano pa, act pala niya eh. General Luna to eh. Alam ko to eh. General Luna to eh. This is an act. He can actually speak really straight and statesman-like. And guess what? I was proven not once, many times. Every time he was in China, or when he gave a World Economic Forum speech in Cambodia, or when he gave a speech during ASEAN summits here, he wasn't like Duterte we know. He was statesman-like. He read the script. He was very respectable. Extremely respected. Statesman-like. Kaya naman niya eh. As they say, he does it because he can.
That's part of his allure.
Exactly. So during elections, he actually talked about US and China. But I think we needed to push him more about what is his vision in general.
Yeah. I'm quite I'm off the fence talaga about the administration right now, because during the 2016 election, it's almost as if siya talaga yung only choice that the most of the public wants, because we came from presidents like Cory Aquino, Ramos, GMA, Era, Pinoy, all from Metro Manila, and then someone wants to do a radical change. He respects the Muslims, he knows about the AARM, Bangsamoro Basic Law. I mean, the idea that someone wants to do a radical change and no one's addressing that before. Right. So parang I think that's part of the allure na, okay, I'm gonna take on the oligarchs of the Imperial Manila. Nandito ako, I'm a nationalist. A lot has been done, for sure. Pero ang dami ring mga moves that doesn't make sense. For me, a lot of moves that doesn't make sense.
You have to, like, alam mo yung parang matrix, column A, column B. So, for instance, I give the president 10 out of 10 almost on the issue of integrating our Muslim brothers and sisters. The whole Bangsamoro thing was a brave.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this is a president who said, Allahu Akbar, God is great in Arabic. Not what? Multiple times during, naalala mo yung last day election meeting the Avanza ba yan?
Yep.
I mean, tumaas ang balahibo ko.
Yeah.
Never in my life I could imagine a presidential candidate in a Catholic majority country with very deep prejudices against Muslims. Very Punisher. Go there, and he explained, wag kayong matakot, ibig sabihin, God is great, we're the same, and all. Like, wow, that was an act of political courage.
Yep.
And then he acted on that. He pushed for the Bangsamoro against all of these racist, prejudicial, trapos, which didn't want to pass it back in Aquino days. All the way. Bangsamoro referendum went pretty smoothly, way better. I was in Marawi last year. From the ground, my information was smooth lahat. I mean, nothing is perfect, but the election was done. The referendum was done smoothly. I mean, give it to the guy. My God, like, of course, there's no assurance anything will work. But compared to what we had, you see, even Marroas didn't have, he didn't support the Pinoy Bangsamoro initiative. You know what I'm saying? Like, in fairness to Digong, I think that was his finest hour. I would give him 10 out of 10, even 11 on that issue. I think that's where he's more Bernie Sanders than Trump. This extreme level of inclusiveness towards the minorities. And by the way, yes, he makes extremely sexist statements, which are horrible, embarrassing. But if you go to Davao, they'll tell you he has a lot of good LGBT programs for LGBT. I have LGBT academic friends in Davao who have been progressive people who have been great things about Duterte and Sara Duterte. So I'm not blind to that. This is the problem. When you have polarized politics, you only see one dimension. When you have to look at others, I mean, like one of my favorite poets, Rumi, said, the problem with many people is like, imagine like 4 blind men come and touch different parts of an elephant and thinking that part is the universe without seeing the whole thing, right? This is the problem with partisan politics. It's like a bunch of blind people just looking at one is looking at the legs of the elephant, head of elephant, thinking that is the universe. if you look at the polity, you have to break it down. On the issue of oligarchs, bad method, but interesting precedents. Because this country has a serious problem with competition. It has the most expensive, hindi totoo labor cost ang problema ng or even yung constitutional restrictions. It's secondary. It's really cost of electricity. I advise top Japanese investment companies and all. I've advised Wall Street and all. Big problem in the Philippines is utility cost. And your utility sector is dominated by the oligarchs who are supercharging us. It's a joke. There's no real regulation of basic services in the country. Now, I don't agree with the president because he was very selective. He's like, oh, what about your oligarchs? You're friendly guys. You're medyo liberal. But a good president in the future can say, Duterte kind of set the precedents, now I can do something good. You know what I'm saying? Even on US, I don't agree with what the president has done a lot of times. But at the same time, damn it, we shouldn't be just like the little brown brothers of Americans. Some should put a distance, like, hey, come and respect me. So again, of course, Duterte is self-interested on the human rights or Bato's visa and all. But it set a good precedence that shows future presidents, hindi tayo kailangan yung tuta ng America. The same way we should not be a tuta of China. So what I'm saying is that there's more than a silver lining here. So the Duterte playbook could be improved and used for better. See, Hitler, I'm not saying Duterte is Hitler, but just to be clear, Hitler used socialist mobilization tactics and symbolism to create a vast, monstrous party. So he tweaked the left to create a right wing. The same way we can get some things from the right, not the fascist right, but just the conservative right, and use for the left and progressive change. I believe it. Politics is creativity, and that's what I don't see. I don't see creativity today.
Also, interesting thing that's happening right now, his relationship with Leni Robredo. How do you see her as a political player right now, or even in the future?
So Leni, I think, has evolved a lot. No, I think Leni people are, I mean, I was critical of Leni, like, where's the fire? Like, you cannot be Korea, Kino. This is a different world. This is a totally different world, right? So when she was effectively ejected from the cabinet, she gave a press conference, and she was so nice. You should go a little bit the Lima, you know what I'm saying? Vice president, my friend. If you are the vice, you should go a little bit.
Put a bit of fire into it.
But since last year, I think so. I wrote the column. I said, like, I called her the Phoenix. Like, we almost everyone counted her out. Like, Bongbong will win the case. Tapos ng laban. But she suddenly surged, especially during the Reed Bank incident last year. She went there to the fishermen. In your face administration. This is what the Filipino president has to do. We show solidarity with our fishermen, not the other side who's bullying us, right? This is nonsense. The Chinese militia and everything are coordinated in China, for heaven's sake. I mean, and only an idiot will think that these militia forces who are roaming there with all their GPS and oil and guns and are not coordinated with the local governments or PLA or what. I mean, come on. But anyways, and then from there on, boom, 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 boom. She just moved forward. And then that case against Bongbong Marcos, she pushed back. And earlier this year, even Mocha Oson, pinato niya. Kasi, you cannot play it nice. This is not this is not a beauty pageant, my friend. This is politics. Duterte has just changed the game. By pushing the dark side of Philippine politics to its logical extreme. But that doesn't mean the end of democracy automatically. That means you just have to be more creative and push it. And with President Duterte, another good thing he has done is what? Reproductive health. This is the priority of the state. No one else should tell the state what to do on the issue of reproductive health. I mean, this is a matter of national interest. If you don't control a population, I mean, one reason why the Philippines' average living standards has not improved very much is because our population growth is way higher than Indonesia, like Thailand, and most of our neighboring countries. The same level of development. It's just ridiculous. You need a state with certain level of independence from that. So I think President Duterte, for instance, he has this kind of a secular side to him, like, I am the state, I will assert, I will not allow the civics, the civic sector to impose it. Again, I might disagree with his methods, how he does it, etc. But I think it sets some interesting precedents for future presidents. Kasi itong gusto ko I want a president who's really the president of the country, not a front group, not some tuta of a foreign power, not some puppet of some oligarchs. I want my president, even if I don't agree with him, I want to know who's my president.
Yeah.
Because president is the ultimate decision maker in the country.
Mm-hmm.
China, Xi Jinping is the ultimate decision maker.
Yep.
Not Trump, not Russia, not Jack Ma, none of them. Xi Jinping is my president. If you're Chinese, you know who's your president. In the Philippines, I'm not sure. Like, who's really our president? You know? Ang daming mga sa paligid na puppet master. I don't like that. So I like a president who reasserts the primacy of the state.
Yeah.
So I'm a statist, true and true, because I believe you need a strong state to, to protect the country and help people and foster this sense of nationalism. Now, very quickly, everyone says, oh, look at Korea, Taiwan, they're all rich and all because they had authoritarian leaders, blah, blah, whatever. I mean, first of all, 1950s, they were all poorer than us.
Yeah.
So if you want to use the culture argument, well, how many years have these countries been existing? Thousands of years. But they only got richer than us in the last 30 years. So logically, you cannot use the constant, which is more or less their culture, to explain a transient phenomenon, which is their growth. So obviously, that explanation is nonsense. The idea that mga Filipino culture natin is problematic, but these are among the most successful around the world if you go around, right?
Yep.
The other explanation is because they're authoritarian. Well, the problem is we tried authoritarian, Indonesia tried authoritarian, Mugabe tried authoritarian, Gaddafi tried authoritarian. For every Lee Kuan Yew you cite me, and by the way, Singapore is just a city, right? I'll cite you 100 Mobutus and Mugabes and Marcoses who were failure Guinness Book level failure economic.
Yep.
And by the way, what really explains the success of Taiwan, Korea, and these countries is policy, trade and economic industrial policy, and strong institutions of state.
Yeah.
But the Korea, sinabi ni General Park, you do this, Hyundai and Samsung and all used to be like our own oligarchs. They were doing all these whatevers.
Yeah.
And General Park gathered them in the presidential palace, the Blue Palace, and gave them a warning. LG, for instance, was just nobody. He gave LG 5 years to develop electronics. Sabi na LG, we don't have the expertise. No, you have 5 years, my friend. Guess what? Within 2 years, they had a German partner. Within 10 years, LG became a major electronics company. Within 20 years, they're a global company.
Whoa.
You see, that's the kind of strong man I want. Who builds institutions, who builds global industries.
Yeah.
So General Park of Korea, I disagree with him. He was a dictator and all. But after him, Korea had big companies, global companies. Samsung, LG, Hyundai, right? Kuomintang in Taiwan and Chiang Kai-shek, they oversaw what? All of these companies coming out of Taiwan, right? And Malaysia had at least, proton cars and all. Ano yung kay Marcos again? What global industry guy left us, for heaven's sake, aside from $26 billion debt? Like, just use your brain. It's not even about partisanship. Ilocano, of course, I want to be proud of me. Yes, we were treated well during martial law. Baguio is nice. I know. But the fact of the matter is, our dictators are even worse than our incompetent Democrats.
Yeah.
So let's not go. It's like getting rid of your boring boyfriend by getting back to your abusive husband. That's autocratic nostalgia in countries like that. Get leaders who build institutions.
Yeah.
That's the leader I want. That's a strong leader.
Yep. In regards to the treatment of Duterte as well, let's say sa oligarchs of the Metro Manila, the ABS-CBN shutdown, what's your take on it? Is it a personal vendetta or it is just what it is?
Well, Bongo made it clear, right? He said,
come on. Kung nandito ba si Bongo, like, come on, dude.
Bongo is probably our next president. So, I listened to that guy very, very carefully, right? So, I think the president made his feelings about ABS-CBN clear. I don't need to add to that.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at is what I call authoritarian blitzkrieg. Suddenly, so March 25 or something, emergency powers President Duterte. Suddenly, in the next 3 weeks, all these subpoenas, and it's in a month. Oh, IBS-CBN is shut down. Oh, suddenly 2 months. Oh, suddenly my arrest says. Interesting. That's very. So for 3 years, parang shadow boxing, and then exactly no nagkaroon ka boom for knockout. I was like, let's not be idiots here. Like, your brain, my friend.
I remember the Maria Ressa. I think there was an interview from Al Jazeera, and you were like a 3-window panel with Harry Roque, yourself, and this other guy.
That was it.
And I was looking at your reaction the whole time. Tapos parang even like Harry Roque was telling the host that you have wrong. What did you say? First of all, I forgot what you said. Pero first of all, you have to I have to set things straight. Tapos parang he was defending the fact that ito sinasabi nung isa niyong kasama na this is a personal vendetta. The president has been saying this since the first SONA, and you were trying to be fair about it. Pero I mean, Harry Roque is a respected lawyer, right? I mean, he was a respected lawyer even before.
So interesting. I posted it on my Facebook. So I stumbled upon a Harry Roque Journal article on the Philippine Human Security Act terrorism. He was bashing the previous terrorism act, which is mild compared to the new one. I mean, I love to read this. So the mild one is horrible, and then this new one comes and it's like, okay, I was like, Harry Roque explains to me many things. Why our country is like this, to be honest.
Yeah.
See, the middle class is the hope of any democracy. The problem in the middle class of the Philippines is that a lot of them had to escape during the martial law period. They went to US, Canada. When you go to US and Canada, I gave talks in Harvard, among others. There will be so many Filipinos studying there, working there. I mean, they don't come back anymore. I mean, we lost a lot of great people. And then a lot of the middle class are left here. They feel so sandwiched between the oligarchs and elite and the so-called massa. So they look for some sort of a Pinochet or type junta to just put them, instead. So I think, you would have hoped that someone like that guy, when they have some access to power, will inject. But look at what you're getting. Look at what it's just depressing. It's absolutely depressing. What is happening? Seeing these people not even contradicting themselves, just like eating their own words and their own life advocacy legacy. I mean, I gave a book talk in European in Brussels before in one of the think tanks on this rise of Duterte, and one of the biggest jokes among the diplomats is, how is Harry Roque? I mean, he was the president of international humanitarian law. How are you doing defending Duterte's EJ case and everything like that? And yun na nga, our educated professional people, ito na nga yung pinakapag-asa mo to break the hold of the oligarchy and help the mass. But if they're just going to go there and be sellouts, damn it. I mean, what is going to happen to our country? I mean, it's really, really depressing. It's absolutely dispiriting. But some people just like power and shiny stuff, and they're willing to give up everything. Probably I would have been in a very, very good position in this government if I was a little bit more sellout than I am. Just a little bit. I have taste. I stand just a little. Like I was the beloved of the DDS in the first month. It's people were joking Richard is the unofficial spokesman. They're going,
That's funny. Kung sell out ka lang a bit, no? Oh man, you'll be in the posters in EDSA.
I just can't. I have standards. I'm sorry, man. My taste was a buhay. Ganyan talaga.
Ito rin siguro, I want to hear your take regarding, like, di ba we were talking na we watched yung 1,000 Cuts. It's very interesting for me. Actually, even before, just to give you an idea then, siguro where I'm coming from, I've always admired Rappler because siguro I've been a practitioner of digital marketing, so building websites, social media ads, Google ads, mga integrated performance marketing type. So 10 years ago, there's not a lot of publications that has translated their business in digital platforms. Like if you go to Inquirer, Manila Bulletin, or Philippine Star, like hindi pa nila alam how to tackle that type of platform. And Rappler saw the opportunity and came in like a big player agad sa game.
Guns blazing, baby.
Yeah. Oh, guns blazing for sure. So alam nila how user experience works, how how UI works, how to cascade it in social media, how Google Ads work. So I always admired them, and they are bold. They are bold in what they're doing.
No shame, no fear.
Yeah, definitely. Although, when I watched this documentary though, actually I was like drinking, I think I was drinking a glass of whiskey. Maybe 2 glasses, I think. Or 3. Tawag dito, the last thing.
Sponsors, Johnny Walker.
Magpo-pop na lang dito sa screen, sa right side. And then tawag dito, ang sinulat ko actually sa notebook ko was that,
you take notes, okay.
Yeah. Her intent is just. That was her job, to be bold. But was she reckless? I think doon ako medyo nalilito when it comes to their side. Eh. I like that they are bold. I like how progressive they are. How informed their materials are most of the time. Pero there are few things that they did that was quite reckless, and ngayon nahanapan sila ng government ng butas. Kaya I don't know how to react to this issue though. Kasi parang ang hirap sa akin sabihin na automatic dinidismiss na ng government ang press freedom. Pero in the case of Rappler, it was a solid case. It's just that yun nga lang, the leverage, the government leveraged on it.
There are 8 cases against Maria. So which one are you referring to? The foreign ownership issue? I mean,
No. The other one. The one in which hindi siya nakapagpakita ng evidence. The case... Yeah. The case na, the article na sinulat na, that they mentioned that is libelous. Yeah, and they weren't able to... Yeah. And then they weren't able to present any evidence for it. So, dun ako, yun yung catch sa akin na parang, I love Rappler, I love what they're doing, they're bold. Where's the fine line between opinion and editorial journalism? You know, I mean, dun ako medyo... Yeah. What's your take on it though?
Well, I'm not completely in agreement on this case na conviction ni Marites. I think a colleague of mine, John Nair, did a very good column last, yung mga missing points, yung mga problema. Like, I'm not sure the judge even understood what's the job of an executive editor. It's not a root. It's actually a job. I mean, damn it, just Google it. There's a job called executive editor. I mean, so, you know, which is different from editor-in-chief, etc. It's more like overall who to bring in, you know, it's more like that. It's the lay of the land person that day to day. So I think a sensible court would have probably taken slightly different. But anyways, I don't want to go into the legalities of that. I heard some lawyer friends who are not necessarily PDS or whatever who said there could be actually more vulnerability on the ownership thing.
That part pa ang mas...
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. So I don't know. But these are not people who are like anti-rapper. They're people who wrote for rapper or whatever. What when it comes to rapper, I look at the big picture. I mean, I really love doing the big picture because it's the only way I can understand and make sense out of the situation. Otherwise, you're just gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
The first thing I see here is the Rappler versus Duterte saga is a reflection of a bigger problem. And this bigger problem is that you have a kind of a startup media company that challenged the corporate media, and then you have a president that now is essentially declaring war on more or less the independent media. So you have this kind of a Game of Thrones going on there, whereby you know, normally you would have expected Rappler and the mainstream media to actually stand together because all of them are private media and independent voices. You may not disagree with them, whatever, but in democracy, you have to allow for plurality of voices. The same way that we still allow the fake news vendors to go on and on Facebook and elsewhere. So, but I don't see the solidarity. And I don't see the solidarity. And I think we can have this long discussion about where the fault lies. But what I can say, of course, I'm on friendly terms with all sides, and you know, I work internationally, so I'm familiar with the vibes of Rappler people. I mean, especially Maria, who worked for CNN International, and Nikki Gutierrez is a great friend. They have the vibes. I mean, these are world standard journalists, so they have a swab. Let's just and I have my own swab too. So I don't feel it, but there are many colleagues in the Philippines who have been slighted. I'll just be brutally honest. I think there are a lot of people that feel that Rappler kind of gives this vibe. We're the real ones here. You're all like, what? Not true, but it's the feel. That's why, because I was really shocked when lumabas yung issue ng foreign ownership. I didn't see my colleagues from people who are democratic. They were EDSA. They didn't show the kind of solidarity I was expecting. In fact, I saw the opposite. They were posting stuff saying, baka mo, yung dodging nga, baka si eBay guy, medyo may, so I try to understand that. So there's an element of that. And then I had friends from mainstream media who were bashing already Rappler for year and year after that. And I ignored that and I disagreed with it. And when this came up, And then I saw others also not showing solidarity. Is that there's something going on. And of course, you may know the history of Rappler. A lot of them used to work in a major media network, which now is also in trouble. And
Yep.
so that background, I think, what is sad to me is that because of that, there's not a united front.
Yep.
It's like the Kuomintang and the communists fighting among each other while the Japanese occupation is up. I mean, it's basic problem. I'm a strategist, so I don't want to get into your little wars there. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the big picture. Yep. We're all going to be in trouble if we don't get our act together. We need a united front here.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where I'm really frustrated.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I told this to Western media and all. I sometimes I have some awkward conversations with really good friends of Rappler there, and I'm not going to name names, but these are very prominent friends outside. And when they said, "Oh, Rappler is the guy," are the people who stood up to Duterte and all, and they're pioneering and all. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But what is the Rappler levels of impact on Philippine public opinion? It's nowhere close to ABS-CBN or GMA or even T5. I mean, the following of those guys is, by the way, Inquirer, I think .NET has even larger following.
Yep.
I mean, let's be brutally honest. And the thing with Rappler, by the way, is an English language.
Yep.
And Bahasa. So the market is mostly us, the middle class, classes. But the massa, I'm not sure how the massa really read Rappler. I think they only got to know about Rappler because of the bashing they're getting from Open. Well, how should I put it? I have lady colleagues, because I used to, Patricia Manasseh's good friend. I mean, we were all in debate society in UP Diliman. By the way, it's a small, come from small world, so you can guess that. Patricia is wonderful. She's done a good job, drug war coverage and all. I also have many colleagues, young ladies, who do not have that kind of profile, from ABS-CBN, from GMA, who are doing nightly coverage of the extrajudicial killings. And they're putting their lives under danger. There's so many people there holding the line. So it's not a David versus Goliath. It's many Davids versus a multi-headed kind of Goliath or whatever. So I really get a little bit frustrated with that because, and I want to hear more from our Raptor friends, also giving credit to these these young reporters from GMA, from ABS. It's not like ABS and GMA were just like, sleeping on their hands or something like that. Man, look at the coverage of ABS-CBN and GMA of the drug war. My God, 24 horas, Patrol, my friend. Those are what the massa watches. I mean, so, and by the way, Rappler, I mean, it's not Rappler. Inquirer was threatened, almost supposedly taken over by a Duterte-friendly businessman. ABS-CBN now is shuttered. I mean, so I'm really frustrated with this whole situation. I want so much more solidarity for Rappler. I want also so much more recognition of 1,000 cuts against 1,000 unsung heroes. Not only Rappler.
Yeah, for sure.
That documentary just interviewed Rappler people. I mean, Karen Davila was there, right, in Cameo. My God, the kind of trolling Karen gets, my God, they even attack her child. I mean,
grabe.
Karen Davila is huge. Like, she's not as huge as Rappler. I mean, no offense. I mean, and Karen Davila is one. I mean, my colleagues in GMA are there. I'm sorry, we're all getting trolled. All of us got death threats and everything like that. And let's not make it, it's like David versus Goliath. So, cliquishness. I don't like that. And I'm not accusing Maria Ressa or anyone specific. I know it's very controversial. You can say I'm very uncomfortable with this, and I didn't make this statement on Twitter or anything like that because I don't think it's the time to settle scores or make the accounting. But how I wish we have a united front in this time. And I don't see Duterte as the enemy. I think Duterte actually represents a dangerous mindset among many warlords and oligarchs who do not want independent media, who hate investigative journalism.
Good point.
Duterte is kind of like a, he's
antagonistic figure.
Yeah, I mean, he's also being presented as the Goliath, but in fact, the reason why Duterte is there and so powerful is because what he says is resonating with a lot of really dark elements in our country who do not want investigative journalism. And if we're not in a united front, tapos ang laban. No match tayo, as in no match. And when I say tayo, it's not about Dilawan or media. It's like any Filipino who doesn't want to be something like China, for heaven's sake. I mean, Russia. or whatever.
Yep.
I've spent time in authority. I've been in North Korea, in China, whatever, in the Middle East. I know what is an authoritarian system. You don't want to be there. The economy, even if the economy is good, you still don't want to be there.
Yep.
You know, I would Manila anytime over Dubai, Abu Dhabi, maybe even Ankara or Istanbul. You know, of course I love it and all, but iba pa rin eh. I mean, freedom is just it's a magical thing, and let's not allow personal competition, petty rivalries, ego and narcissism get in the way. This is a time for, honestly, one of the things I said is this: why not Sereno, Leni Robredo, De Lima, all of these women fought. Why not have a joint press conference or something like that? De Lima can send a letter from a prison, a la Mandela. You know the PR power of that?
Yeah.
With Maria Ressa and all?
Yep.
You can imagine, why is it not happening? I don't get it. I don't understand. It's common sense.
Yeah.
Anyone who has studied the Solidarity movement in Poland, the people power movements in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East. My first book was an Arab uprising, so I studied very well. Yep. When the seculars, Islamists, everyone came together, fought against Mubarak regime. In the United Front, where the hell is that? Yeah. I don't see it. And this is really, really frustrating. And at the same time, ako kasi, I'm really an outsider. I'm always an outsider one way or another. So wala akong, I'm friendly with everyone. And my audience is actually more even international. That's really my mark. Think tanks. So I don't have a stake in the internal fights.
Yep.
But that, I think, also has given me more clarity of view of what's happening here. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
So, it's very sad. But I hope this will not continue, because if the Philippine liberals and civil society are going to be so divided, hopeless case and down the road. Maybe we may survive Duterte or whatever, but we're very vulnerable down the road. And I'm very frustrated with that.
Yep.
And what's happening with the liberal and centrist is something like what happened to the left. Diba tingnan mo yung mga left ng Philippines? Two lefty Filipinos, you get 3 organizations out of them.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a first international, second international, second international, and then new name, labor, socialist, and then third international. So you don't want to go down that road.
Yeah,
you need a united front. And in fairness, the DDS and the conservative elements in this country, they're united. You attack Mocha, you're going to get trolled back by 10,000 people and 10 other trolls. You attack one liberal thinker person, you're on your own, my friend. You're on your own. I had no one defending me when I was being trolled like crazy. One of the funny things is Franco Mabanta was one of the few guys who defended me somehow in a nice way when I was being trolled like crazy by some of the DDS people.
Yeah.
And when I was being trolled by Dilawan, I think Pab stood by me, in fairness, Pab or Lord De Vera, a few of them, Carter Seldron, a good friend, they stood by me back then. But I saw a lot of my colleagues and friends like, oh, you're quiet, you're having fun.
I need a little lifeboat here.
I watch Game of Thrones. I know what's going on here, my friend. Say. That's my problem. I'm too honest. I think I'm just honest. I have no
It's refreshing, man. Keep it that way, dude. It's refreshing. That's actually one of the reasons why I want to speak with you. I think a lot more people should have this type of voice out there. More people should be speaking this way, because ang mahirap kasi sa Philippines right now, when you say something, automatically may partisan affiliation ka, which should not be the case. It's frustrating, actually, because I don't think we're not moving forward if we were to do it that way. Yeah. Go.
Okay, I think it's very easy to stereotype me, right? Like with my trippy suit and all of that. Like, I think a lot of people feel I have this impression of me, mga anak Brent school to, or I get that, right? And I, of course, so I remember even in UP they would joke that you don't look like you're from UP or whatever.
Wow.
But honestly, I never saw myself like that, and I'm from a middle class background, so coming from Baguio, I already had some issues with, because Baguio is a very egalitarian city. It's an American city, in a good sense of the word. We had rich friends, family friends. We had more ordinary family friends, but we never had this kind of, the Dasma people keeping themselves away from everyone. We never had that. Never had that.
Yeah.
Some of our friends could afford, PS4 right away, PS1 or PS2. But we never allowed class differences to affect our human interaction.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely proud of that. And I think even today, with all the deterioration of Baguio, the middle class spirit is there.
Yeah.
So Manila was always a culture shock.
Yeah.
To see the Dasma Reach on one hand, and not too far away, all the beggars, and when I'm among some of the richer friends, and they talk about their trip in Italy and Milan and Paris and all, and it's like, my God, if you just some of the money wasted down there for some extra Dolce Gabbana stuff you bought, if you just help a little bit people more, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and problem is that that mindset, I saw that even in UP with some of the more rich kids who made to UP and all of that, a lot of them are making it. So there's that element, I don't want to go too deep into that. At the same time, I'm not also happy to see their extrajudicial killing in my town in Baguio. There were EJK case in Session Road. For heaven's sake, our drug problem is not like Davao. We're not Davao.
Yeah.
You got your formula in Davao, you had your Nicaragua situation, 80s, 70s. Have your thing, okay? I'm willing to be relativistic enough. I'm not gonna lie. But don't come to Manila and then impose that model on my city in Baguio.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm not very happy about it. That didn't even happen under Marcos. We didn't have that. So, so when you see this kind of random violence happening in my city in Baguio, I took offense with that. Like, don't bring that side of Davao to my town in the north, right?
Yep.
And if you got your own anti-imperial, we got it too. But you know what? If we Baguio people took charge of Manila, damn it, we would have done way better than these people. Right? Hey, man. We have that Baguio pride. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
And as Carlos Saldan, God bless his soul, he said, you Baguio people, when you say you're from lowland people, lowland. That's true. We do. I mean, we have our own spring wear and all of that. Tabang ang Baguio and I think it's quite justified. And by the way, objectively, if you look at the Human Development Index, which is the best measurement of level of development, Baguio is level of Spain Human Development Index. It's the European Union level in terms of literacy, education, and average incomes and all. We're way ahead of everyone else in the Philippines.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean,
what do you think helps that though? Ano yung enabler nun? Is it geographical location? You guys are in the mountains? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, we were a more modern city built under Americans, the Spanish enough to make it there. So my advantage of that, and of course, it used to be a high-end tourism place, most of it's relatively less populated and all or congested until, fortunately, the past 20 years. But still, it's an educational center. It's a cultural center, and there's a huge middle class families like my family, the Forondas, that go generations back, and we maintain that, and our high level of education allows us to be successful around the world. So all my family, everybody. So we have the pride. We're very, very proud of that tradition. Right.
Okay. For the next tweet, America it was in June 13, 2020. A guy said, America was founded on libertarian thought. It was founded on the idea of limited government and small government. And you said, America was founded on libertarian approach to slavery, hence centuries of an unimaginable oppression, which constantly threatened its loftiest pursuit of democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's just a libertarian morality. Like, for instance, like, want to do marijuana or whatever, weird kind of sexual related. With that, maybe I'm socially conservative, but I'm willing on a political level to have certain libertarian, tolerance or whatever it's or acceptance or appreciation. Yes, but in terms of libertarian policy to economic matters, to labor policy, I got a huge problem. I mean, anyone who bothered to study for instance, the Great Recession in 2008 and 9. Reason those Wolf of Wall Street guys were, making a joke out of the world's savings. For running a casino there is because of their regulation.
That's true.
Libertarian idea. If you leave the markets to itself, they will self-correct. Self-correct what? I mean, have you don't need to study Das Kapital of Karl Marx to see how inherently unstable it is. And for heaven's sake, just read Mark Twain. By the way, he was just co-author. Gilded Age. how horrible the US was
Yeah.
when there was no regulation by the federal government back
Yeah.
in the 19th century. You know, few rich guys controlled everything. Like Rockefeller controlled the entire 60% of the oil industry.
Yep.
Americans were miserable during that time. We're miserable. And that was also the beginning of the populist movement and all. And by the way, on slavery, yeah, that thing should have been abolished from the very beginning. How
Yeah.
can you call it democracy when you have millions of people in the most inhumane conditions? And unfortunately, you see the after effects of that until today.
Exactly.
You and I wouldn't want to go some parts of America.
Yeah.
I mean, probably that I'm Mexican or something like that. I mean, the deep south, and their deification of this their Civil War heroes who were defenders of slavery. Horrible. Those statues have to go down, my friend. They have to go down.
Yeah.
There's space for that in the 21st century. So if you go to a social democracy like Scandinavia or Germany or even Britain, which is imperfect in so many ways, at least they have a national healthcare program, which is decent. And then you go to the US, my God, it's like a rich Philippines, like a richer Philippines, but with all of its feudalism and prejudice. Plus the fact that you have different races. So there's absolute racism that at least we don't have that there because we're not as diverse. So that's the kind of libertarianism. I don't believe it. And by the way, it's not the size of the government. I know it sounds wrong. It's a quality of government. And by the way, in political economy, the measurement of that is tax collection rate. A strong government can collect taxes, especially from the rich who don't want to pay. Governments have a very weak tax collection. The Philippines' tax effort is among the lowest. Like France has a tax effort of 30 to 40%. The Philippines has barely 15%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's under the theft, but it's down under ERAP tremendously, and then it had to recover for 20 years. A weak state cannot collect tax. A libertarian government will just let it be. I'm sorry. And by the way, the libertarianism presupposes that we were born in this kind of an Eden, and then the successful ones are the ones who work hard, and then the lazy ones are the ones who are poor.
Profit from it.
It doesn't work that way because we know many lands in America were occupied by a bunch of cowboys who just killed the people there and occupied it. They didn't get it by merit; they get it from violence. And make sure to distribute it properly among different populations according to the constitutional principle. So that's where I have this problem with small government, big government. It's quality government, as they say, quality over quantity.
Last tweet. So NASA this was when was this? May 18, 2020. So NASA just discovered a parallel universe where time runs backwards. Well, this is our chance to correct wrong choices, whether mga ex or electing bad leaders recently.
Yeah, sabi ko baka may NBI ako dyan. I have to post a link doon sa I mean...
It was just a funny thought, maybe.
Yeah, no, but I mean... Sometimes when I get so depressed, I really think about multiverse.
Oh, yeah.
I go to, I mean, I go into quantum mechanics and randomness on the subatomic level. Sometimes science is a good refuge, but sometimes even science doesn't have the good answers. So that's what I can say. So nakita ko na, obviously, I was very simplifying, very complicated. But that's the thing. If you look at Einstein's theory, I think he talked about space-time. He talks about theory of relativity. The only thing that could not be changed is time. Like you cannot time travel. That's what Einstein was saying. So let's see if he were wrong because he's been proven right over and over again over the past decades with new experiments. So let's see that. And by the way, I mean, I love mga movies na counterfactuals, yung mga, whether it's like
Edge
If Only or what was that space movie? What was that space movie na sikat 2 years ago? Oh my God.
Edge of space movie.
Not Martian. The other one.
Oh, Interstellar.
Interstellar. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the last part when he goes into dark
fifth
matter.
dimension.
When the gravity is times and then he went back to his daughter. Like, oh my God, like that was I was so sad.
Oh man. I wish we have more time to talk about more of your pop culture interests. But okay, let's move on to the let's move on to the last segment of the interview, man. So I will give you like a few questions, like quick question and quick answer. Wala pa akong title sa kanya actually. Ayoko lang talaga siyang tawaging fast talk. Pero, I don't know. Hindi ko pa alam kung anong title niya. Pero ito, quick question, quick answer. Okay? Got it? Alright.
Quick na lang, tawagin mo QQ.
Ano? QQ? Quick?
Yun na lang na po.
Ito.
Answer.
Who is your dream interview? For FYI or for your own thing, who's your dream interview?
There are many of them, but actually I was hoping, and it was possible, to interview Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I was about to go to New Zealand actually March 24 or something. I was supposed to date, wala, na lockdown tayo. So I was really looking forward to meet the Prime Minister. I hope she's still around. I mean, she will be, I think, next year.
Okay.
Yeah, because she's like 30, what, 9 or something?
Yep.
She's 39. I mean, she's 30s and not.
Admirable.
I would like to meet these young 30s people. I mean, whether it's Macron, I'm not that impressed, or Justin Trudeau is so-so, but Jacinda is really wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah. I look forward to meet.
Better spokesperson, Harry Roque or Salvador Panelo?
Harry Roque, yeah. I think
Harry Roque. Okay. Most underrated politician that we have now in the Philippines?
Like today?
Yeah.
Jeez, there's so many of them. I mean,
if you were to choose one.
Oh, God. You know what? I think in retrospect, Secretary Yasay, who just passed away, I think he was a good guy. He was a good man.
Yeah.
He was a good man. I mean, nung una, we were all making fun and all, and then I was like, it's really hard to be a diplomat for Duterte.
Yeah.
I think he did pretty decent. I mean, if not good. I told him, you're my favorite foreign secretary of Duterte. He was just like super nice guy. I mean, God bless his soul. I would put Yasa as the most underrated, at least top Duterte official. Yeah. God bless his soul.
Except Miriam, Defensor Santiago, who's the best presidential candidate that got away?
You mean last election?
No. Ever since.
Ever.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna last election. That's gonna make me look like.
Yeah. Not last election. Pero except Miriam.
If about the best presidents we never had, I mean, Jokno is one of my top.
Yep.
I mean, Jokno.
Yep.
I mean, the guy now is great. I love the Jokno now, but the Jokno father was like, Ilocanos were so proud to say, oh, Marcos was brilliant. He topped the bar. Guess what? Jokno topped accountancy and bar, and he didn't even finish his law school. I mean, brilliance, my God. And forget about brilliance, heart, men care. I mean, Jokno. Duterte respects Jokno. Diba nung inaaway niya yung buti pa yung tatay mo. I love Jokno. I think, God, I hope we had Jokno as our president. My God.
Better city mayor, Mayor Isko or Mayor Vico?
Lagot tayo dito. That's a dangerous question. You know what? I think Vico is aging better.
Okay.
I mean, if it's news of the Dragon Slayer, you're in. Vico is aging better.
Okay.
I hope Vico will bow it. Yeah.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of Philippine presidents?
What's Mount Rushmore? Oh my God.
The 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore, but they have that in the US.
Oh yeah, the 4 guys.
Yeah, the 4 guys. Yeah. Who's your Mount Rushmore of Philippine presidents?
I like Max Saysay. I think he was a special guy. I think Manuel Quezon has not been appreciated enough. His plan was really, he was moving towards a more dictatorial system towards the 1940s, but not cut siya in Japan, Imperial Japan.
Yeah.
I think if Saysay was given a bit more time in politics, he could have built the foundation of a strong state. So I'll definitely put Manuel Quezon there. And by the way, he was pure Spanish. He was completely Yolel, and then he fought on both. I mean, that guy is an interesting story. Yeah. So, four, no?
Yeah. Hirap ba?
Tapos na, ubus na. No, I think honestly, I don't think I know enough. The more I read, the more like for instance, Kirin, I didn't know he was one of the most. Quirino was one of the most misunderstood. Like he the more I read about it, kasi parang ano siya like his life story was really, that his wife and family were all murdered by the Japanese. But forget that generosity of spirit and heart. I mean, I don't see it as weakness. There was something more than that. vindictiveness that he was willing to overcome.
Yep.
And then now we see all this vindictiveness and pettiness around.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll not put him there, but there are things about Kiruna that impressed me. And then over the past more contemporary time, Ramos is my favorite post-EDSA president.
Mm-hmm.
I told him that he loves it. I said, something I wrote an article about was Ramos the best president, and he said, bakit parang past tense yung title? Patay na ba ako? This guy is funny. And Ramos is so smart. He has like 8 masters. He's an engineer in UPI. The guy is brilliant. I mean, honestly, I don't buy all this kind of parliamentary blah, 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 whatever. But if parliamentary would have allowed Ramos to stay a little bit longer, we would have avoided ERA.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Things would have been different, I think.
Sector would have changed.
Yep.
You see a little tweak in history, so much difference. I mean, it's like, ayun, yung The Bureau ba yun? Yung movie ni, there was this movie, The Bureau.
The Bureau with,
who's
who's the actor?
The guy in The Martian.
Oh, Adjustment Bureau?
Adjustment Bureau, yeah. Remember the concept of path dependency? Like, if I didn't meet you here or something, my life would go there. That's politics, my friend. Like, little tweak here and there.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
I don't think neither Duterte or Pinoy would have been.
Recap your Mount Rushmore, Magsaysay, Quezon, Quirino, and Ramos. For my last question, if you were to be a politician right now, which position would you take?
Wow, that's the maybe not spokesman. Maybe not spokesman. My friend, that's the not doing. I don't like hard rock's job. That's what I think.
Oh, I get that. That's fair. But if you were to have one, though,
I don't know. I'll leave it to the people.
Yeah,
the very politician answer, no?
I get that.
More useful somewhere, yeah. Let's see. But I'd rather be an informal advisor, that I'm free to criticize and they're free to ignore me. So that's my favorite.
Richard,
Conciliary.
thank you for making the time. Thank you for granting me a few seconds of your time for this interview. I have learned a lot, and again, telling you more people should be hearing you more. I can't wait. I hope you get your own podcast, man. I can't wait to hear you more online, dude.
What's something, man? Yeah, let's think about something. I'm thinking about it. My problem is I have so many trolls and haters now. They're gonna nitpick. They're gonna find a little, like 2 seconds. I make a mistake or something. They're gonna make a story out. So like, I might need a proper production because I really wanted to do this free flowing. But the problem is that unfortunately I live in a very dangerous situation. But
I get that.
it's great. I'm myself. I just wanted. I'm learning movie editing, whatever. But what I hope is to be a guru one day.
Hit me up. Maybe I can help you out, dude. Hit me up.
Yeah, let's see. I'm asking for people to come.
Yep.
I don't have a contractual problem when it comes to that. Because I wanted Lord De Vera and all of these people to come in, but all of them have their competing contracts and all. So magiging problema sa amin.
Got it.
Hey, man, thank you so much. It's glad to meet you, talk to you, and I like this Joe Rogan type of.
Thank you, dude.
Cool, man.
Vinyl records,
it's a nice combination, right? Like that, like.
Thank you so much, man. I hope I can get you. I can have you as a guest again in the future. We can talk about more of the pop culture, your pop culture influence, everything that is happening in current events, and a lot of things that we haven't discussed still. So, thank you again, man. Thank you for making time for this one.